Chapter 615. Upon hearing Wang Sheng's words, the Grand Abbey Dean hurriedly said, "Please wait a moment, Elder. I'll make the arrangements first." Old Taoist Ling Su could not hide his curiosity, but he did not ask at this time. Instead, he waited quietly for the Grand Abbey Dean to make the arrangements. "How are the 9 words mantra and Taiji fist taught?" Wang Sheng asked curiously. Speaking of which, Wang Sheng really did not know how these two skills were taught in Laojun Temple. In any case, almost all the white-bearded and white-haired old Taoists that Wang Sheng had seen had learned them. For the time being, you have to be a loyal core disciple of Laojun Temple for at least 50 years to practice it. Old Taoist Ling Su said simply, "If it wasn't for the huge commotion you made when you advanced last time, even the name of the 9 words mantra wouldn't have spread. Now, outsiders don't even know that Laojun Temple has a unique skill called Taiji Fist. Only disciples who had been in Laojun Temple for 50 years could be taught." This made Wang Sheng sweat. Even if they joined Laojun Temple at a young age, they had to be in their 50s before they could practice it. Wasn't this too harsh? It should be noted that masters were emerging in large numbers. There were as many masters as carps in the river. Restricting the practice of Taiji Fist and the 9 words mantra would likely limit the development of some young masters. Wang Sheng told this concern to the old Taoist. Before the old Taoist could answer, the Grand Abbey Dean had already turned around and heard Wang Sheng's words. He answered on behalf of old Taoist Ling Su. "It's enough for young disciples to learn the original skills of Laojun Temple." The Grand Abbey Dean's answer stunned Wang Sheng, but he listened patiently. Be it the 9 words mantra or Taiji Fist, how can they learn it if they don't understand the profound meaning of Taoism? Of course, the Grand Abbey Dean saw Wang Sheng's expression. He said with a bitter smile, "Not every young master is a genius like you, Grand Abbey Dean. Most people from the Dao sects would only be able to understand the principles of yin-yang Tai Chi after cultivating for 20 years. At that time, they would be able to learn some Tai Chi Fist, but it would only be superficial, and they would not be able to truly control it. On the other hand, those who have studied Taoism's knowledge in a down-to-earth manner are able to cultivate these two things smoothly." The Grand Abbey Dean continued to explain, "It's not that we haven't thought of letting the young disciples learn, but we've tested at least 100 young disciples, ranging from 20 to 50 years old. Only 13 or 14 of them can master Taiji Fist, and all of them are above 40 years old. As for the 9 syllables Buddhist incantation, none of them can master it. 4 or 5 of them above 45 have learned a few words. If they want to master it completely..." The Grand Abbey Dean began to shake his head. When Wang Sheng heard this, he was dumbfounded. Was Tai Chi and the 9 secret words that difficult? Even if the 9 words of Buddhist incantation were really difficult, Taiji Fist should not be this difficult. Old Taoist Ling Su chimed in and explained, "The Tao of Yin and Yang is not that simple. We also realized that it wouldn't work, so we agreed to let you take a group of young disciples outside to gain experience. If half of those disciples can come back, they might be the young disciples who are most likely to master Tai Chi Fist." Wang Sheng finally understood. This might be related to the cultivation method of the Laojun Temple. However, the Grand Abbey Dean could come up with the idea of using 100 masters to test their cultivation. It was very in line with the principle of practice producing true knowledge. It showed that the Grand Abbey Dean was really a very suitable talent to manage the Laojun Temple. As he spoke, the Grand Abbey Dean had already led Wang Sheng and Ancestor Ling Su into the depository of sutras. Wang Sheng had already discovered along the way that there were at least 70 to 80 different auras around the courtyard outside the depository of sutras. The masters of the Laojun Temple must have already surrounded this place. Actually, my method is very simple. Only Wang Shengkai, the old Taoist Ling Shu, and the Grand Abbey Dean were present. Wang Shengkai said to the two in a secret room on the upper floor of the Tower of Scriptures, "It's because it's so simple that I'm afraid it will be easily leaked out and taken advantage of by other forces." The Grand Abbey Dean certainly understood Wang Sheng's concerns. Instead of feeling that Wang Sheng was making a fuss about nothing, He was very happy that Wang Sheng could be so thoughtful. The fact that Wang Sheng could let the Laojun Temple be so careful showed that he was really loyal to the Laojun Temple. This was more delightful than having another unique skill. You have learned Tai Chi Yin Yang. Have you tried to turn your acupuncture points into a Tai Chi Yin Yang cyclone? Wang Sheng did not hesitate to reveal another secret he had mastered. He looked at old Taoist Ling Su and waited for his reaction. Acupuncture points? Tai Chi Yin Yang cyclone? Old Taoist Ling Su and the Grand Abbey Dean were both stunned when they heard Wang Sheng's secret. Then, old Taoist Ling Su immediately fell into a state of deep thought. So did the Grand Abbey Dean, who looked like he was in deep thought. Forming a Tai Chi Yin Yang cyclone in his acupuncture points could greatly increase the speed at which Wang Sheng absorbed spirit qi. It could also greatly increase the amount of spirit qi he could hold. Otherwise, given the number of acupuncture points Wang Sheng had, he would definitely be much weaker than ordinary experts. Now, Wang Sheng could occasionally kill a few experts who were at a higher level than him because of this. How is that possible? Old Taoist Ling Su did not speak and kept thinking. The Grand Abbey Dean had already exclaimed in surprise. Why is it impossible? Wang Sheng asked with a smile. If it's really impossible, how did I do it? You did it. Old Taoist Ling Su suddenly interrupted and asked. After hearing Wang Sheng's words, he woke up from his deep thought and asked in shock. Wang Sheng nodded and said to old Taoist Ling Su, "Senior brother, if you can do it, I reckon you can improve greatly in a short period of time. You should be able to barely surpass the terrifying expert inside. It all depends on the results." That was Wang Sheng's real purpose. Since he could not stop the old Taoist from going in, he would let the old Taoist improve his cultivation to the point where he could fight against the terrifying expert. That way, he would be much safer when he went in. In the past, Wang Sheng thought that it would be easy. After all, he knew the principle of Tai Chi, some knowledge of physics, and the theory that vortexes could increase the speed of flow. Basically, he could do it. However, judging from the state just now, it was clearly not an easy task. It could be seen from the fact that ordinary disciples of the Laojun Taoist Temple could not master Tai Chi. What Wang Sheng thought was easy might not be the same for the Taoists. Even old Taoist Ling Su was surprised. It showed that adding the Tai Chi Yin Yang cyclone to the acupuncture points was not as simple as Wang Sheng thought. Let me try. In addition to being indifferent to fame and fortune, old Taoist Ling Su was also a martial arts fanatic, especially when it came to Taoist martial arts. Therefore, he was surprised when he first saw Tai Chi. Now that he heard that it was a secret cultivation method related to Tai Chi, he naturally would not miss it. Senior brother, it won't be too late for us to set off when you master this method. Wang Sheng smiled and said, "In the meantime, I have to build something first." Chapter 616. Whatever Elder wants to make, Grand Supreme Lord Temple will take care of it. The Grand Supreme Lord Temple directly said. Wang Sheng had taken out yet another technique that could be said to be the ultimate technique among ultimate techniques. If Laojun Guan still did not say anything, it would not be right. Wang Sheng, this secular elder, was half forced and half coaxed by ancestor Ling Su. Previously, when Dai Clan plotted against Wang Sheng, although the Grand Supreme Lord Temple stepped forward to put pressure on Pavilion of Delicacy, they didn't take any action against Dai Clan and didn't show enough support for their own elder. Pavilion of Delicacy has promised to provide Grandmaster and 10 kinds of rare materials. Wang Sheng didn't hide it from the Grand Supreme Lord Temple and said with a smile, "Let's forget about it. It should be enough. Then, if there's anything else you need, the Grand Supreme Lord Temple will take care of it." The Grand Supreme Lord Temple immediately said without hesitation. In addition, Elder can access all the cultivation techniques of the Grand Supreme Lord Temple at any time. See if they can help Elder's cultivation. It wasn't a secret that Wang Sheng was collecting advanced cultivation techniques. It wasn't just a day or two. Those that could be found in the market were basically bought by Wang Sheng at high price. However, compared to the major vassal states, the cultivation techniques that were passed down in the real clans were rarely leaked to the outside world. Unless it was like when Wang Sheng killed Tang Ao, which was the spoils of war from their corpses. To be honest, there weren't many opportunities like this. Few experts from major clans would carry cultivation secret manuals around. Most of the time, they would return them immediately after borrowing them from places like the Grand Supreme Lord Temple's scripture depository. Tang Ao's situation was special. In order to guide the later generations in cultivation, that guy specially wrote a cultivation commentary that included almost all the content of cultivation. That was how Wang Xing got it. It was really a surprise that the Grand Supreme Lord Temple's cultivation techniques were open to Wang Sheng. This also meant that the real power class of the Grand Abbey, led by the Grand Abbey Dean, had completely accepted Wang Sheng and treated Wang Sheng as the most senior secular elder. To be able to cultivate Ancestor Ling Su, who was at least in the 11th stage realm, to be able to cultivate Qing Chun Old Taoist, who was at the peak of the legendary realm, and to be able to cultivate so many white-haired and white-bearded old Taoists who were of similar age in cultivation, the cultivation method of Lao Junguan would probably make Wang Sheng smile in his dreams. All right, during this period of time, I will take a good look at the cultivation method of my Lao Jun temple. Wang Sheng did not stand on ceremony and accepted it happily. Since he had decided to bring old ancestor Ling Su along, then Wang Sheng did not mind bringing a few experts of the royal family to help him, lest Wang Sheng had to take them on another trip in the future. Send someone to send a letter to Chief Steward Li in the Imperial Palace. Tell him to prepare the people to enter the core area and set off at any time. Wang Sheng instructed the Grand Abbey Dean. Anyway, we can't avoid them to make a living in the capital. Let them help us. The Grand Abbey Dean nodded. This was a small matter. The royal family sent people in to take a look. They just wanted to fight for the initiative and also hide the fact that Lao Junguan was also going in. By the way, inform Mayor of the news and let her arrange these things. You don't have to show up. Wang Sheng and the Grand Abbey Dean simply thought of the same thing. Even the arrangements were so appropriate. At that time, as long as old ancestor Ling Su went with the identity of a red card assassin of Worry-Free City, no one would know his identity. I will do it now. The Grand Abbey Dean nodded without hesitation. By the way, tell Mayor that I will be cultivating here for a period of time. Wang Sheng continued to instruct, at least for 2 months. So let the royal family prepare well and find those who will not have crooked thoughts and are obedient. Okay. The Grand Abbey Dean answered concisely. In addition, the things I want to do are more complicated and require a lot of things. I will make a list. Send it to Linglong Pavilion first. If they have it, let them pay for it. If they don't, buy it from the market. Wang Sheng continued to instruct. Reading the cultivation techniques of Lao Junguan in the scriptures depository wasn't a matter of a day or two. Even if Wang Sheng only read every single one of them once, it would probably take at least a month or 2. If he didn't make use of this time, it would be too much of a waste. It was better to let the Grand Abbey Dean do it to make him feel at ease. The Grand Abbey Dean was happy to help Wang Sheng and readily agreed. As for the gold coins, he didn't even mention it. Lao Jingguan had never lacked gold coins. In this world, there were probably not many forces that had more gold coins than Lao Jingguan. Just reading the cultivation techniques was definitely not the goal. The most important thing was to find suitable cultivation techniques for Wang Sheng's 64 acupuncture points. 64 meridians, when placed in the 7th-stage realm, could barely be considered as above average. Geniuses who increased by 9 meridians by every stage realm would only have 63 meridians in the 7th-stage realm. Perhaps Wang Sheng was one of the few who was able to cultivate the 7th-stage realm cultivation method in the 6th-stage realm. When Wang Sheng said that he wanted to make a list, the Grand Abbey Dean had already started to grind the ink and quickly prepared a set of stationery for Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng lifted the brush and realized that it was actually Qianxing Yuan's work. He couldn't help but ask with a smile, "You guys also use Qianxing Yuan?" Of course, good things are worth having. The Grand Abbey Dean was also humorous and explained, "Use Qianxing Yuan's things to copy all the ancient books of our Taoist sect. Not to mention anything else, just using this paper alone was much more convenient than using bee skin, and it was even easier to flip through. Elder's research on Qian Xingyuan's things is really meritorious. As the two of them chatted and laughed, Wang Sheng had already written out the list of things that he needed. The Grand Abbey Dean took a look, and before he could even praise Wang Sheng's calligraphy, he was immediately dumbfounded when he saw the content. Wang Sheng said that he wanted to make a list, but there were no names on it. They were all the requirements that Wang Sheng needed, and there were no restrictions on what it was. For example, Wang Sheng wanted a type of metal that had enough elasticity and fast rebound speed. The elasticity must be over 50,000 kilograms and a total of not less than 20 kilograms. Another example, Wang Sheng wanted a rope or animal tendon that could withstand a force of 50,000 kilograms. After mixing or weaving, it must not be more than 1 centimeter thick. Wang Sheng wanted a super hard metal that could make weapons that could penetrate 5 layers of armor without deforming. He wanted as much of this metal as possible, and the lowest must not be less than 100 kilograms. The series of requirements were all specifications, but there were no specific names. Of course, the reason Wang Sheng wrote this was because he didn't know what could meet these requirements. Therefore, he sent it to the Pavilion of Delicacy first to get some suggestions from the great grandmasters of the Pavilion of Delicacy. At the very least, they would know the names of some suitable items. Basically, the Grand Abbey Dean took Wang Sheng's list and went to do these things. As for Wang Sheng, he rested for a day and a night to recover his energy. Then he dragged old Taoist Ling Su along to continue what he had not finished before, which was to add the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone to the newly developed aperture acupoints. Chapter 617. Old Taoist Ling Su said that he was observing, but in fact, he was just relying on his intuition. He could not see the changes in Wang Sheng's body, and it was even more impossible for him to know the number of acupuncture points Wang Sheng had. However, old Taoist Ling Su was still watching from the side. He just wanted to predict the difficulty of completing the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone through Wang Sheng's condition, and at the same time, help protect Wang Sheng. Of course, the most important thing was for Wang Sheng to remember the feeling of completing the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone. It could also be considered as some experience for old Taoist Ling Su. Wang Sheng did not decline. He continued to lie on the recliner and did the finishing touches. Now, completing the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone was not difficult for Wang Sheng. It just needed time. It would take at least 3 days and 3 nights to complete all 32 acupuncture points. After entering the state, Wang Sheng began to control the rotation of the spiritual energy in the new acupuncture points. With the help of the battle awareness minion, he soon immersed himself in thoughtless anatta. Old Taoist Ling Su stood by the side and carefully felt the changes in the surrounding spiritual energy. This time, Wang Sheng was not as exaggerated as when he was advancing. He did not use the surrounding spiritual energy at all. Instead, spiritual energy surged in like a tide from the surroundings when a normal person was cultivating. In the beginning, Wang Sheng's spiritual energy absorption speed was constant. Old Taoist Ling Su was already mentally prepared. However, after waiting for more than 2 hours, old Taoist Ling Su suddenly realized that Wang Sheng's spiritual energy absorption speed had increased. Could this be the effect of increasing the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone? Old Taoist Ling Su was not completely sure and continued to observe silently. Following that, Wang Sheng basically completed an aperture every 2 hours. By the time half a day had passed, old Taoist Ling Su was completely certain that Wang Sheng's spiritual energy absorption speed had increased by no less than 20%. It was very effective. Wang Sheng didn't stop. Old Taoist Ling Su kept staring at him. He watched as Wang Sheng's spiritual energy absorption speed continued to increase. On the first day, it increased by more than 30%. On the second day, it increased by more than 30%. By the time the third day ended, when Wang Sheng got up, it had already doubled. Originally from the start, Wang Sheng's absorption speed was already shocking enough. He was merely a 6-stage realm cultivator, but that stance was like a 7-stage realm top exponent. Before the advancement, Wang Sheng's performance wasn't that outstanding. But in less than 2 days after the advancement, Wang Sheng's transformation was as if he had been reborn. Old Taoist Ling Su once again accompanied Wang Sheng to drink porridge and recuperate as they chatted. Looks like the changes in your primordial spirit before the advancement is really amazing. From the change in Wang Sheng's spiritual energy absorption speed, Old Taoist Ling Su could see that the Tai Chi yin-yang cyclone was really useful. But what surprised him the most was not this, but the huge change in Wang Sheng's cultivation before and after the advancement. Previously, although Wang Sheng could be said to be someone, his cultivation was not worth mentioning in the eyes of Old Taoist Ling Su. Apart from his strength and the Tai Chi technique and the 9 syllables mantra, only his keen senses were left. But now, after the advancement, Wang Sheng suddenly gave people the feeling that he was an expert. This feeling of an expert was not the kind that ordinary people with ordinary qualifications would spend decades to barely reach the edge of this level. Instead, it was like those amazing geniuses, full of vitality, full of unlimited growth. Did Wang Sheng suddenly become enlightened? Impossible. It was impossible for the advancement process to make Wang Sheng become enlightened in his cultivation. The only explanation was what Wang Sheng had said before. His primordial spirit did not advance when it met the advancement conditions, and after a period of consolidation, he discovered that his primordial spirit had changed again. Wang Sheng's primordial spirit was a growth-able primordial spirit that no one had seen before, so any changes were possible. Looking at it now, it seemed that this change was very gratifying. Old Taoist Ling Su was also happy for Wang Sheng. When Wang Sheng continued to cultivate the 64 chakras, he would no longer be using those low-leveled cultivation methods in the past. Instead, it was a brand new cultivation method that was optimized by the little person with combat awareness, combining several types of 6-stage realm cultivation methods. There was no name for it, and Wang Sheng had no intention to give a name. What was the point of naming a cultivation method that could only be practiced by himself? Did it have to be an earth-shattering, 9 heavens 10 earths bodhisattva shakes his head in fear of thunderbolt god lightning palm to be considered a cultivation method? As soon as he started cultivating, Wang Sheng immediately noticed the difference. If the cultivation method of 32 acupoints was like a baby learning to walk, then the cultivation method of 64 acupoints was like running at full speed. The spiritual energy absorbed from the body first slowly rotated and assimilated in each acupoint, and then circulated along the cultivation route carefully calculated by the combat consciousness dwarf. On the circulation route, Wang Sheng could even feel the grand feeling of the spiritual energy gushing out from each acupoint and converging into a river. Countless spiritual energy converged into a torrent, breaking through the obstacles between the newly formed acupoints one by one, connecting all the acupoints and circulating again and again. Every time the torrent circulated, it was purified and condensed by the 64 acupoints. The quality of this spiritual energy was also getting higher and stronger. Everywhere it passed, Wang Sheng was so comfortable that he almost moaned. It was said that if the cultivation method was correct, it was a very comfortable thing. Right now, Wang Sheng was feeling this pleasant feeling that made his whole body feel comfortable. When he had 32 acupoints, or even earlier, he had really wronged the combat consciousness dwarf. He also had to optimize a cultivation method from those trashy cultivation methods that could not be more trashy. In the future, he would not have to be so sullen anymore. After the next advancement, there would be no cultivation method in this world that could meet the requirements of Wang Sheng's acupoints. Wang Sheng was very happy, and so was Old Taoist Ling Su. At Old Taoist Ling Su's realm, any cultivation method, even the Buddhist incantation of 9 words, could only slowly improve one's cultivation. It was almost impossible for one to advance by leaps and bounds all at once. However, Wang Sheng had given him a possible way. Not only was it possible, but it was also a practical way. If he really formed all his acupoints into the Tai Chi yin-yang cyclone like Wang Sheng did, the strength of the old Taoist could more than double on the spot. This was the most conservative estimate. The Grand Abbey Dean was also very happy. Although Wang Sheng's secret method sounded very simple, it was definitely not easy to do. However, it was the easiest for the experts of the Laojun Temple who had achieved success in Tai Chi to cultivate. This also meant that the high-end martial arts of the Laojun Temple could be improved a lot in a short period of time. How could the Grand Abbey Dean not be happy? Speaking of happiness, the people of the royal family were the happiest now. Previously, the emperor and Wang Sheng had revealed their intention to enter the core area, but in the end, Wang Sheng declined. The reason was also very reasonable. He was afraid that the royal family would die, and he was considerate for the royal family. However, who was the emperor? Would he be afraid that no experts would be willing to die? Now, Wang Sheng had sent a message through Mayer asking them to prepare. No matter what the reason was, the emperor had a reason to be happy. The secret of the core area of the Land of Thousand Despair was going to be presented to the royal family for the first time. Chapter 618. The royal family was secretly organizing experts to prepare supplies. It was the same for the Pavilion of Delicacy. Because of Wang Sheng's warning, the Pavilion Master of Delicacy knew that she had also been set up. She was furious and grateful. She promised to give Wang Sheng the materials and send a Grandmaster to forge the 10 tools that Wang Sheng had specified. Now, Mayer had come to visit with a list. When they heard that Wang Sheng was going to create something completely new, even the exquisite Pavilion Master's eyes lit up, not to mention the great Grandmasters who were waiting to see if they had the opportunity to participate. The things that Wang Sheng had come up with over the years were no longer ordinary things. They were all dazzling gold coins. Whether it was the furniture and cooking utensils in Carefree City or the product from Qian Sheng Yuan and Runzi Workshop in the capital, almost all of them had great market potential. The salt and sugar industry had already been divided up by various countries. The Pavilion Master Delicacy was dizzy when she received the list. If she had not been in contact with the masters in the manufacturing industry, she would have been confused by this list. She finally understood that these were the materials that Wang Sheng had requested. The specific materials were not set. In other words, no matter what the material was, it would be fine as long as it satisfied Wang Sheng's requirements. The list was also given to a few grandmasters who researched weapons and materials. Old Tai was one of them. Everyone looked at the list, and guess what Wang Sheng wanted these things for? Looking at the material that requires high rebound speed and high elasticity, it might be for a crossbow. Old Tai pointed at the first material on the list and guessed. Yes, there should be materials for making bowstrings and arrows at the back. Another master nodded in agreement. But he doesn't have the material for tail feathers. Someone had a different opinion. Without tail feathers, how can he shoot arrows? Also, that material might be used to make the back of a bow. Who can pull it open with such great strength? Everyone had their own opinions, but no one could be sure what Wang Sheng wanted to make. However, this problem was simple. They just had to prepare the materials and wait for Wang Sheng's guidance. However, just preparing the materials was not that easy. The batch of materials that Wang Sheng wanted had to be thick enough to withstand a force of 100,000 jin or be able to penetrate 5 layers of armor without deforming. It was quite difficult to find such materials. The Pavilion of Delicacy was the Pavilion of Delicacy. Things that were extremely difficult for outsiders were as simple as flipping through the warehouse for the Pavilion of Delicacy. However, even though it was easy to rummage through the warehouse, taking out these items would still cause the Ling Long Pavilion to feel the pinch. There was no other reason than it was too precious and valuable. He didn't dare to talk about other things, but the material was so hard that it could pierce through iron armor without deforming. It was a top-notch material for forging swords. Just 1 or 2 kilograms of it would be worth millions. However, Wang Sheng had asked for 100 caddies of gold, which was equivalent to tens of millions of gold coins. The Ling Long Pavilion was rich, but they didn't expect Wang Sheng to demand such an exorbitant price. However, Mayer seemed to have expected all this. When she sent the list, she said that if the Pavilion of Delicacy didn't want to pay, the Marquis's residents would buy it with gold coins. Even the Laojun Temple sent someone to express the same attitude. This time, the Pavilion of Delicacy had to pay. If the Chongqing Marquis's residence or the Laojun Temple bought it with gold coins, the Pavilion of Delicacy would lose its face. No matter how painful it was, the Pavilion of Delicacy had to take out the materials. Fortunately, if Wang Sheng really wanted to make bows and arrows, he had agreed to make only 10 of them for free. 1 bow and 9 arrows would be enough. As for the rest, Wang Sheng would have to pay for it himself. There were a few materials that even the Pavilion of Delicacy didn't have. However, the great grandmasters were knowledgeable and knew which materials could meet the requirements. They made a new list and worked together to look for suitable materials from all over the world. Everyone was waiting for the materials to be ready to see what amazing thing Wang Sheng could come up with. Wang Sheng didn't care about these now. He was completely immersed in the Laojun Temple's cultivation method. Ever since Wang Sheng completed the formation of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang Cyclone, Wang Sheng stayed in the scripture depository. If he wasn't exchanging experience with the old Taoist Ling Su about the transformation of the acupuncture points, he was flipping through the cultivation methods. According to most people's thoughts, Wang Sheng should have directly picked up the 6th and 7th stage realm cultivation methods and flipped through them hungrily. But Wang Sheng didn't do that. Instead, he started from the most basic cultivation method of the Laojun Temple and started to learn it systematically bit by bit. Wang Sheng had read The Deer in the Cauldron and remembered the part which introduced the Shaolin martial arts. He had to start from the Arhut Fist, then move up to the Skundao Palm, all the way to the Great Compassion Thousand Leaves Hand. This was a step-by-step process. The book recorded the martial arts of the Shaolin Temple of Buddhism. Wang Sheng believed that it was the same for the martial arts of the Taoist sections. So, Wang Sheng chose to start from the most basic cultivation method of a non-mainstream realm and read through them one by one. If there was any need for some Taoist knowledge to explain, Wang Sheng would consult the old Taoist Ling Su or other old Taoists. Anyway, there wasn't much here except for the old Taoists. Everyone, including the old Taoist Ling Su, was surprised by Wang Sheng's choice. However, they didn't say much about it. Everyone learned from the simplest cultivation method. Other than feeling that Wang Sheng had already reached this realm and didn't need to read the most superficial things, no one criticized Wang Sheng's behavior. Wang Sheng cherished this opportunity. To be able to systematically read through the cultivation methods of the Taoist sects was really a great opportunity. Since Wang Sheng started cultivating, he actually didn't have any systematic cultivation experience. This time, it could obviously make up for Wang Sheng's shortcomings. Even the simplest and most basic cultivation method was the most precious experience that the ancestors of the Taoist sects had accumulated over thousands of years, using the lives and bodies of countless disciples. To Wang Sheng, this was a treasure. It had to be said that even the simplest basic martial arts cultivation method had made Wang Sheng discover many mistakes in his previous cultivation. Although they were all very insignificant mistakes that didn't affect the overall situation for the time being, 1,000 miles of dike could be destroyed by an ant's nest. If he didn't solve the root problem, when he cultivated to a higher level in the future, there would definitely be a big crisis. This was the logic of a mistake of a millimeter could lead to a great error. Now that he was still in the 6th stage, Wang Sheng had the opportunity to solve all the hidden dangers in this aspect. Naturally, Wang Sheng put in the most effort to complete this matter. Not only did Wang Sheng urge his brain to memorize crazily, even the little person with combat awareness was also constantly integrating the full set of Taoist cultivation theory, perfecting the newly modified cultivation method bit by bit. For more than a month, Wang Sheng had been flipping through the cultivation methods below the 6th stage realm. Every day, there were about 30 to 40 types. Finally, he had finished flipping through all the Tao cultivation methods in the Elder Supreme Lord Temple. Next was the high-level cultivation methods. Chapter 619. Compared to the beginner cultivation methods, the number of advanced cultivation methods was much smaller. Especially for those above the 6th stage, it was directly compressed to less than 100 types. Among these dozens of cultivation methods, the Tai Chi Fist and the 9 secret words contributed by Wang Sheng accounted for 2, while the Tai Chi sword that old Taoist Ling Su comprehended later accounted for 1. The rest were the advanced Taoist martial arts essence that had nurtured powerful experts such as old Taoist Ling Su, Taoist Qing Chun, Taoist Qing Ling, and the Grand Abbey Dean. Basically, these less than 100 types of cultivation methods were the highest level cultivation methods that only those loyal core disciples who had passed a series of loyalty tests by the Grand Supreme Lord Temple had the opportunity to cultivate. Now, all of them were open to Wang Sheng. Unfortunately, Wang Sheng could only look at these cultivation methods and could only drool. He could not cultivate them yet. However, this did not prevent him from reading them carefully and memorizing them in his heart so that the little person with combat awareness could refer to and optimize them. One must know that these cultivation methods might seem unattainable now, but if Wang Sheng were to advance one more time and complete the Chunyo transformation, all the cultivation methods here would not be enough. 128 acupuncture points was an unprecedented genius. Perhaps only the super experts of the 12th stage could match up to it. After spending another half a month, Wang Sheng carefully read through all these advanced cultivation methods and memorized them firmly. And these 2 months were enough for old Taoist Ling Su to learn how to form a Tai Chi Yin-Yang cyclone in 1 acupuncture point. Although the rotation was slower and the range was smaller, there was indeed a cyclone. He did not know if it was because Wang Sheng was not from this world, but many things that were very simple to Wang Sheng were very difficult to the people of this world. Perhaps this was the reason, but Wang Sheng guessed that the bigger reason was the difference in knowledge. For Wang Sheng, who had received modern education, if the amount of information he came into contact with on Earth was T, 1T equals 1024 G, then the amount of knowledge that the cultured people of this world came into contact with was at most M, 1G equals 1024 M. The difference was more than 1,000,000 times. The difference in the amount of information brought about a difference in imagination and creativity. At the same time, it also brought about a difference in understanding. This was the key reason why it seemed simple to Wang Sheng, but complicated to others. Old Taoist Ling Su spent 1.5 months to barely form a cyclone in 1 acupuncture point. After that, it was easy. The 2nd acupuncture point only took 5 days, and the 3rd one immediately took only 1 day. Later on, his speed became faster and faster. Every day, he would be able to change 5 to 6 apertures. Although it could not be compared to Wang Sheng's abnormal speed of changing 1 aperture every 2 hours. On average, he would be able to change 1 aperture every 4 hours. This was a rare performance from an expert in this source spirit world. When Wang Sheng left the scripture depository, the old Taoist still had less than half of the acupuncture points that had not been changed. For the time being, it was impossible to act with Wang Sheng. But even so, the effect of the old Taoist only changing more than half of the acupuncture points still made the Grand Abbey Dean and the other Taoist priests who knew the old Taoist cultivation base stunned. The speed of the old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation base could be said to be advancing by leaps and bounds. It was different every day, and he was surrounded by familiar people. This kind of change was almost naked in front of everyone. The Grand Abbey Dean was surprised and happy. Although he did not have the ability to complete the transformation for the time being, as long as the old Taoist Ling Su proved that this kind of transformation of acupuncture points was effective, then it was enough. The Grand Abbey Dean saw that as long as he mastered this unique skill, a disciple who reached a certain realm could at least double or even several times the cultivation base of an expert of the same level outside in just 1 year. What kind of concept was that? This unique skill with only 1 sentence was immediately sealed and turned into an advanced cultivation method for Taiji fist and Taiji sword to be practiced to the extreme. It could only be practiced by old core disciples who had made great contributions. Senior brother, you can focus on your cultivation. I'll go make some tools and my weapons. Wang Sheng told the old Taoist Ling Su not to worry, and he went to get busy with the things he had to make. The old Taoist Ling Su waved his hand and let Wang Sheng leave the scripture depository. He was still in the building to complete the final transformation. This time, Wang Sheng was not alone when he left. The Grand Abbey Dean sent 4 young experts to accompany Wang Sheng all the way as guards. Originally, the Grand Abbey Dean wanted Wang Sheng to bring a few old Taoist priests of the Qing generation, but Wang Sheng felt that bringing a few old Taoist priests was a little disrespectful, so he declined. In the end, at the strong request of the Grand Abbey Dean, he brought 4 young disciples. The group went straight to the capital and then went straight back to the Marquis's mansion. When she saw Wang Sheng, Mei complained for a long time, coquettishly. Then, she happily turned back into a lady and began to prepare Wang Sheng for a bath and a change of clothes. He had stayed in the courtyard of the scripture depository for 2 months in the Grand Abbey Dean, but it was not as comfortable as the Marquis's mansion. After not seeing her for 2 months, Wang Sheng found that he actually missed Mei unconsciously. Fortunately, after seeing Mei, Wang Sheng was very happy. He also seemed to realize that Mei's natural charm had decreased a lot for him. Sure enough, after the improvement of cultivation, the ability to resist temptation would also increase. However, this did not mean that Mei was no longer attractive to Wang Sheng. It was just that the natural effect of lust had been reduced. However, she was still the same person. There were still yearnings, and he would still be attracted to what he should be attracted to. It was just that his feelings had become pure without lust, without any resistance. Wang Sheng let Mei clean up and change into clean clothes. After eating a romantic lunch with Mei, Wang Sheng went straight to the Pavilion of Delicacy with the company of Mei. It seemed that the Pavilion Master of Delicacy did not want to see Wang Sheng. This was normal. After being blackmailed by Wang Sheng for so many things, it was fine if she did not want to see him. The Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion had pushed everything to Old Man Tai. Therefore, as soon as they arrived at the Pavilion of Exquisite Pavilion, shopkeeper Chen's son, shopkeeper Chen Jr., who lived outside the worry-free city, accompanied Wang Sheng the entire way to find Old Man Tai. What exactly do you want to forge? Old Tai and the others have been waiting for this answer for 2 whole months. The things are almost ready except for one thing. However, there were traces of it. It would take at most half a month for it to be delivered to the capital. Now, everyone was waiting for Wang Sheng to announce the answer so that they could start working. I want to forge a weapon that I can use. Wang Sheng smiled and gave the answer. There are many people here. Wang Sheng did not specifically say what kind of weapon he wanted. However, this answer alone was enough to satisfy the curiosity of many people. I knew it. Old Tai excitedly slapped his thigh and laughed. Tell me, who do you need? I will immediately call him over. Chapter 620. Wang Sheng had never been polite to these grandmasters from the pavilion of Linglong. He believed that these grandmasters would not want Wang Sheng to be courteous to them. It was not hard work to make something for Wang Sheng, who was full of new ideas. It was an opportunity to broaden one's horizons. No one wanted to miss out on this opportunity. Wang Sheng directly chose Elder Iron. There was nothing he could say about this. Then, he looked for Master Wu, who had advanced the last time. He was the author of the Emperor's Sword. Wang Sheng did not pick any names. He let Old Man Tai and Master Wu pick their own. He needed a master at making measuring tools, a master at making crossbows, a master at making bowstrings, a master at grinding metal by hand, and a master at carving metal tubes by hand. He had to be a master at carving inner tubes. Basically, that was all they needed. After hearing Wang Sheng's request, Old Man Tai knew that Wang Sheng was going to make a crossbow. This was the same as what he had guessed. As for arrows without feathers, he believed that Wang Sheng would give him an explanation when it was time to make them. All the people and materials that Wang Sheng needed were moved to the home manor, and the guards were responsible for their safety. Wang Sheng and the other grandmasters started to make preparations for the start of work. Most of the materials had been prepared, except for one. It would arrive in half a month. However, this did not stop Wang Sheng from making some preparations. Wang Sheng was going to make a crossbow. It was a long-range composite crossbow that was more powerful than the M200 sniper rifle. This was also in line with Wang Sheng's original identity as a sniper. Ever since Wang Sheng saw his sniper rifle's bullet being caught by someone in Carefree City, he knew that the M200 was not invincible in this world. Perhaps the M200 could be fatal to someone below the 5th or 6th degree. However, once it reached the 7th degree or above, as long as the opponent was on guard, the most the M200 could do was to injure them. Wang Sheng was also a cultivator, so he naturally knew the condition of his muscles. The small-caliber rifle bullets on Earth couldn't even penetrate Wang Sheng's muscles. From a distance, a sniper rifle bullet might be able to pierce through his skin, but it definitely couldn't penetrate his muscles. If he was like this, what about the others? The power of a bullet actually depended on the kinetic energy carried by the bullet head. The kinetic energy formula, 1/2 x mass x speed squared, was easy to calculate. The M200's 408 CT rifle bullet weighed about 27 grams, and the muzzle velocity was 915 meters per second, which was less than 11,400 joules. There were two ways to increase the power of bullets. One was to increase the weight of the bullet, and the other was to increase the muzzle velocity. What Wang Sheng wanted to do were these two things. However, Wang Sheng did not intend to modify his bullets and sniper rifles. He intended to use a batch of high-grade materials from this world to build a composite heavy sniper crossbow with this batch of Grandmaster Craftsmen. The propelling force of the gunpowder in the gun bore could be calculated. 11,400 joules, and the gun barrel was 736. 6 millimeters long. Then the average propelling force of the gunpowder should be around 15,500 newtons, which was easily understood in kilograms. At most, it would be 1,600 kilograms, or 3,200 pounds. Wang Sheng wanted to find materials for the crossbow arm, which had to be able to withstand 50,000 pounds of force and have an extremely fast rebound speed. The power of the crossbow arm was equivalent to the propelling force of the gunpowder. Under the condition that the crossbow's length was fixed, the greater the force of the crossbow arm, the greater the kinetic energy of the arrow. The power of the crossbow's arrow would also be greater. The faster the rebound speed of the crossbow arm, the greater the initial velocity of the arrow. The greater the initial velocity, the longer the shooting range, and the greater the power. Wang Sheng fully considered the feasibility of this, and the rest depended on the materials found by the Pavilion of Delicacy and the craftsmanship of the craftsmen. What made Wang Sheng pleasantly surprised was that the Pavilion of Delicacy was really a craftsman's paradise. They found a crossbow arm material that was suitable for Wang Sheng's requirements. The elastic force actually exceeded 100,000 pounds. It was said that it had reached 160,000 pounds of force, which was an order of magnitude higher than Wang Sheng's requirements. If it was magnified through the pulley system, it would be 50 times more powerful than the gunpowder of a sniper rifle. In addition to Wang Sheng's double crossbow arm and double bowstring design, the kinetic energy of the shot arrow was 100 times more powerful than the M200. Even if it was an 8-stage realm or 9th-stage realm expert, it was not possible for him to have 100 times more endurance than a 6th-stage realm expert. This was an armor-piercing heavy arrow. Even a legendary expert could not withstand this arrow. According to Wang Sheng's initial calculations, the initial velocity of such an arrow was 4 times that of a sniper rifle bullet, and the weight of the arrow was more than 6 times that of the bullet. After calculating, the speed of the arrow should be more than 10 times the speed of sound, and the shooting range could be extended by 3 to 4 times, which was a distance of 10 kilometers. This distance was no longer necessary, and the accuracy could not be guaranteed. So after some calculations, Wang Sheng increased the weight of the arrow and lowered the speed of the arrow. The most suitable weight of the arrow was still to be tested, and this was after the completion of the work. Now, the first thing to do was to satisfy the necessary conditions to create this composite heavy sniper crossbow. How can you pull such a powerful crossbow arm? When he heard that Wang Sheng wanted to make a crossbow, Old Tai had an idea in his heart, but he was still a little worried. Such a powerful crossbow, unless several animals were used to string it, relying on one person, he had never heard of anyone being able to use such a powerful bow. Use the string winder, Wang Sheng explained. Through the principle of leverage, I can save a lot of energy, and then I can basically pull it with my strength. What I'm worried about now is whether there is a suitable bowstring that can withstand such a powerful crossbow arm. Don't worry, no matter how powerful it is, there is a bowstring that can withstand it. Old Ty was not worried at all. As long as you can pull it, even a bow stronger than this can withstand it. But your arrow has no tail feathers, so how can it maintain balance? They're going to make an unprecedentedly powerful weapon, and this was definitely the best opportunity to challenge the limits of materials and weapons. Everyone was excited. All kinds of problems were raised, and they wanted to see what Wang Sheng could do. In order to ensure accuracy and stability, I decided to use rifling to increase the rotation of the arrow and not the tail feathers. Wang Sheng patiently answered Old Ty's questions. Then he explained the principle of static and dynamic balance to Old Ty and the others. In order for them to make something, he had to let them know why he was doing it. Old Ty and the others listened with great interest. Even if some things were really confusing, everyone understood that this was really a new field of knowledge. This was especially true for the Grandmaster, who was a crossbow maker. He wished he could memorize everything Wang Sheng had taught him. There were many problems, but before they could get started, there was still one that had to be resolved. Wang Sheng's requirement was that they needed to have a Grandmaster in the manufacture of measuring tools. They needed precise measuring tools. Chapter 621. After Wang Sheng explained the principle of the vernier caliper and the spiral micrometer, the master who made measuring tools was able to make these measuring tools. When Wang Sheng explained the principle and the accuracy of their measurement, the great grandmasters went crazy. They urged their companions to do it one by one. There was no need for Wang Sheng to supervise them. As a great grandmaster, all of them understood the importance of having a set of precise measuring tools on hand. In the past, they could only be accurate to 1/20th of an inch, which was half a centimeter. Furthermore, they had to rely on their own experience to estimate the length below a centimeter. This was normal. The smallest ruler could reach a centimeter. Any lower would, of course, be a measurement error. However, for Wang Sheng, one could be accurate to 1/100th of an inch, while the other could be accurate to 1/10,000th of an inch. The first one was still okay, but the second one was simply a divine weapon. Not to mention the heavy sniper crossbow that Wang Sheng wanted to make. Just the spiral micrometer alone was enough to make these great grandmasters regard Wang Sheng as a god. Almost every great grandmaster there was more powerful than the old level 9 fitters on Earth. Not only did they have more precise and skillful craftsmanship than the old fitters on Earth, but they also had powerful cultivation that the old fitters could not catch up to. These two factors together increased the success rate by at least a few times. Wang Sheng took out the full set of designs. The detailed size labels were completely based on the designs of some precise weapons in the military. With Wang Sheng's design, the manufacturing ability of these great grandmasters, and the newly made tools, a composite heavy sniper crossbow, could be made by hand. In order to give these great grandmasters an intuitive impression, Wang Sheng even took out his M200 and disassembled it for the great grandmasters to refer to, so that they could have a concrete impression. However, when all the great grandmasters saw the incomparably exquisite M200 sniper rifle, they were all stunned. They could not imagine who, other than the Linglong Pavilion, could make such an unimaginably exquisite weapon, especially the M200's material, whether it was the engineered plastic gun body, the gun barrel, or even the magazine. Each of them was made with the utmost precision. Each of Wang Sheng's remaining bullets was taken out and measured with the measuring tools they made. They were all the same size. Every day, all the great grandmasters racked their brains to think about how to manufacture the heavy sniper crossbow that Wang Sheng had requested, and how to deal with the parts that each person was responsible for. Every day, they forgot to eat or sleep. Even when they were eating or drinking, they were thinking and experimenting. Mayer looked at this group of old men who could easily be her grandfather. Each of them was as excited as athletes who had taken performance-enhancing drugs. She was puzzled. However, Mayer was also very proud. The man she fancied had only used a single idea to make these great grandmasters of the Linglong Pavilion admire him from the bottom of their hearts. This was a man's true ability. The gun barrel had to be made, but it did not need to be propelled by gunpowder, so it did not need to be sealed. There was a horizontal groove along the direction of the gun barrel, which could accommodate the bowstring. The bowstring could replace gunpowder. The front and back of the gun barrel were still intact to maintain the structure. It could be said to be a semi-closed gun barrel. There must be precise rifling inside. For this reason, Wang Sheng had specially asked the great grandmaster, who knew how to draw the complicated rifling, to study his gun barrel for a long time. The angle and winding of the rifling were completely based on the M200. It was impossible for Wang Sheng to have a better calculation result. Therefore, the warhead was also based on the bullet head of the sniper rifle, but the length and the tip were slightly changed. Although it could not have the aerodynamic performance of the precise design on Earth, it would have more than 100 times the thrust, which was much more powerful than the original. The rifling of the most precise sniper rifle on Earth was also drawn by hand. Wang Sheng knew the method, so he discussed with the great grandmaster the most suitable method. 2 crossbow arms, 2 pulleys, the winding of the bowstring, the winding device, the opening for loading the bullet, the clip, the body of the crossbow, the structure of the trigger, the interface for the aiming device, and so on. All of these were made by a specialized great grandmaster. As for the aiming device itself, Wang Sheng did not touch it. It was enough to use the M200's aiming device and Wang Sheng's own abnormal eyesight. It had already been more than a month since he researched the manufacturing method of each part, the construction plan, and the plan. All the materials were prepared, and there were 2 sets of each. One set was used to create the test subject, and the other was used to create the final product. Old Taoist Ling Su had already completed the transformation of all the acupuncture points. After consolidating his cultivation in the Laojun Temple for half a month, he finally came to Wang Sheng's marquis's residence with a new identity. Then, he was grabbed by Wang Sheng to be a strong man. Would it be a waste not to use such a great expert for work? Anyway, he had to consolidate his cultivation, so he could come here to contribute. If a great grandmaster needed a Hercules, it would be Wang Sheng himself. If an expert was needed, it would be old Taoist Ling Su. In short, the processing of all the materials from the inside to the outside was so solid that it was shocking. It was not much worse than the products produced by large industries on Earth. In fact, it was several times better. After all, the machines on Earth could not be as skilled as old Taoist Ling Su, who could use spiritual energy from the inside to the outside to eliminate stress, unify the materials, and compact them. In short, the performance of the materials that had been processed by them could be increased by more than 50% compared to the original characteristics. This made Wang Sheng even more confident. Everyone went through the manufacturing process of each part publicly, and when no one raised any problems, they started to build the test subject. There was only one test subject for the heavy sniper crossbow, but they had to make at least 10 types of arrows, ranging from light to heavy and from short to long. They were divided into 10 different models. These arrows had to go through a series of comparative tests to determine which one was the most suitable for the final shape. This number had already exceeded the 10 that the pavilion master of Linglong had promised, but no one would care about such a small matter. Before Wang Sheng could say anything, Mayor had already sent 10 million gold coins to the pavilion of Linglong, saying that they would use it first and make up for it if it was not enough. Taoist Laojun also did not stand by and sent 10 million gold coins to the pavilion of Linglong. What most people did not know was that the rich and overbearing pavilion of Linglong had been bombarded with gold coins by Mayor and Taoist Laojun twice. The pavilion master of Linglong did not know whether to be angry or amused. The people working in the Marquis's mansion did not know this at all. Everyone was immersed in the manufacturing of Wang Sheng's weapon, and it could be said that they had no distractions. The royal family and the pavilion of Linglong were itching to know what Wang Sheng was going to build. Unfortunately, before the final result was out, there was no news from the Chongqing Marquis's mansion. After a month of building, all the parts were handcrafted by the great grandmasters. Finally, it was time to assemble and test the final shape. Chapter 622. In actuality, almost all of the parts had already been assembled and tested with other parts. At the very least, the accuracy of the dimensions had been ensured. However, because the completion time was different, the final product had not been assembled yet. However, it wasn't easy to complete the final assembly step. Just the step of stringing the crossbow required Wang Sheng to use a fixed workbench made using the principle of a lever. Then, the Herculean Wang Sheng would operate it, and the Grandmaster in charge of winding the bowstring would personally hang the bowstring. The bowstring was woven from an extremely fine metal wire, some spider silk, and the tendons of some demonic beast. It had been concocted with the Grandmaster's potion, making it extremely resistant to tension. Just as Old Tai had said, no matter how elastic the crossbow arm was, it could still withstand it. After completing the most laborious step, the rest was easy. The parts were assembled one by one, fixed in place, and carried out in an orderly manner. Because of the tens of thousands of kilograms of elastic force on the crossbow arm, all of the parts had to be extremely sturdy and stable. Finally, the entire heavy sniper crossbow weighed tens of kilograms, almost approaching 100 kilograms. If it was the Wang Sheng from Earth, he definitely would not have been able to lift it. Fortunately, he did not have to worry about this now. Pulling the bowstring, Wang Sheng carefully observed the trajectory of the bowstring. When the bowstring smoothly followed the grooves on both sides of the barrel and was pulled from the top to the bottom, Wang Sheng revealed a smile. Just from this point, it completely met Wang Sheng's design requirements. Wang Sheng held the heavy sniper crossbow horizontally and tested the feel of it. Fortunately, apart from being a bit heavy, the other parts felt pretty good. However, the Grandmasters at the side were speechless when they looked at the bottom of the heavy sniper crossbow. Who needed a bracket for a crossbow? Wang Sheng ignored the gazes of the various Grandmasters. None of them realized just how terrifying the range of this heavy sniper crossbow was. If they wanted to hit a target from several kilometers away, without the support of the stabilizer, the accuracy would be reduced by an order of magnitude if they just held the crossbow in their hands. Since he did not shoot any arrows, Wang Sheng aimed the crossbow in a direction where there was no one and pulled the trigger. The trigger's strength was just right. It was definitely a master-grade product. Ha! A sound similar to the sound of firecrackers exploding on Wang Sheng's earth rang out. The bowstring almost instantly bounced back to its original state, still humming and vibrating. Throughout the entire process, the bowstring did not touch the gun barrel at all, completely bouncing in the middle of the groove. As expected of the work of a Grandmaster, the balance was flawless. That explosion was the sound of breaking the sound barrier. Because it was only a bowstring, the sound was like a whip, just slightly louder. But compared to the gunshot of a sniper rifle that could resound through the valley, it was still too small. If the sound was small, it meant that the concealment was excellent. What was more outstanding was that there were no gunshots, no smoke, and no muzzle brakes, so the possibility of being discovered was minimized. If the accuracy and power were as Wang Sheng expected, then this heavy sniper crossbow would be the perfect weapon for a sniper. Although the Marquis's residence was huge, it was still far from the range of the heavy sniper crossbow without the arrows to test. However, Wang Sheng was already prepared. 3 days ago, he had already asked the Laojun Temple to make preparations in advance. They had marked out an area with a radius of tens of miles in the Laojun Temple's private property as a shooting range. They had made a batch of targets and were ready to test it out. That day, a group of people rushed to the Laojun Temple in the suburbs of the capital under the escort of the guards from the Marquis's residence. In fact, those guards were not necessary at all. With the old Taoist Ling Su in the team, who could do it? But since he was the Marquis, he had to act like one. After a night's rest, everyone went straight to the shooting range under the lead of the Grand Abbey Dean the next morning. The area had been cleared by the people from the Laojun Temple several times, so there was not a single person around. Because the arrows did not have tail feathers, they used the same design as the bullets. Therefore, a magazine was made according to the shape of the M 200 magazine, which could hold 5 arrows. Unfortunately, it didn't have an automatic loading function. You had to first use a bowstring to pull a handle that looked like a bolt to push an arrow into the gun barrel. Then, you had to attach the arrow to the front of the bowstring to a sliding buckle that fed the arrow. This buckle was also made to push the arrows steadily. Every type of arrow was made of ordinary steel. There were hundreds of them with the same weight, shape, and center of gravity. They were used to calibrate and test their power. They tested the targets at different distances one by one. Next was the boring experiment. With every shot, Wang Sheng had to adjust the scope and remember the most suitable parameters. It was only then that everyone slowly began to see the powerful power of the composite heavy sniper crossbow. Everyone was used to a range of 300 to 400 meters, because ordinary archers could also reach this distance. But when the distance exceeded 2 miles, the accuracy and power of the shots did not decrease at all. Everyone was stunned. Even though these grandmasters had made many powerful weapons, they had never seen a crossbow with a range of more than 20 miles. Even though they had made this heavy sniper crossbow with their own hands, they still felt that it was surreal and unbelievable when they saw this unbelievable scene. Just as Wang Sheng had expected, there was basically no accuracy beyond a range of 20 miles. Wang Sheng shot at the shooting range for 5 days. After considering both power and accuracy, he finally decided on the final shape of the arrows. The weight of the arrows was 500 grams, which was about 20 times that of a sniper rifle's bullet. The shooting speed was more than twice that of the M200, which was about 2,000 meters per second. The maximum range was more than 6 kilometers, but the most powerful effective range was still within 4 kilometers. The rifling that was hand-drawn by a grandmaster would definitely be eye-catching. Within the effective range, after Wang Sheng carefully calibrated the scope, the landing point of the arrows could be controlled to be the size of a basketball within a distance of 4,000 meters. This was a precision that those precision industrial products on Earth could not achieve, but it was handmade by this group of grandmasters in this world. This alone made Wang Sheng admire them from the bottom of his heart. If there were shortcomings, one was that it was heavy, and the other was that the recoil was a lot greater. However, the heavy sniper crossbow itself was much heavier, which offset a lot of the recoil. For Wang Sheng, this recoil was no problem at all. There was another one, and that was the firing speed. Because it had to be manually wound again and again, and Wang Sheng had to use all his strength and the winding device to complete it each time, the firing speed was much slower than that of the M200. But thinking about the range of 4 kilometers and the accuracy, it didn't matter if it was slower. Most importantly, Wang Sheng had requested for the greatest increase in the power of his attacks. Because the material had been processed by Ancestor Ling Su's spiritual energy, it had exceeded previous expectations. Besides offsetting some aerodynamic imperfections, the power had increased by more than 120 times. If it was replaced with the armor-piercing material that Wang Sheng requested, at a distance of 4 kilometers, Wang Sheng could shoot through an expert who was at least at the peak of the 8th stage with one arrow. Compared to the original M200, it was really a change of gear. Chapter 6:23. Everyone thought that this was already a crazy enough weapon. However, when they returned to the Marquis's residence and Wang Sheng told them about the arrow requirements, everyone realized that the real crazy person was waiting for them. The arrow's shape, weight, size, center of gravity, and so on were all decided. Everyone thought that this was the final requirement, but Wang Sheng added more. The heavy-duty armor-piercing arrow was a must. Such a heavy arrow was made of metal, and it had to be made of the hardest metal that could penetrate several layers of armor without deforming. This had to be an armor-piercing arrow. However, Wang Sheng wanted to make a fuss about the arrowhead. The armor-piercing arrow's original bullet shape was changed. Because its weight had increased by 20 times, its length had to be longer. The sharp end was also several times longer, reaching more than 3 inches. Wang Sheng wanted to embed a formation at the 3-inch position of the sharp end. The specific function of the formation was to explode. There was no input of spirit energy, and the formation would explode with the force of the impact. The principle was similar to the shield on the wall of the Linglong Pavilion. Because the formation was at the sharp end, it wouldn't touch the gun barrel. Moreover, it required the force of the impact. Ordinary force, like pulling the string or pressing the cartridge into the magazine, wouldn't cause the formation to explode. There was only one situation where the formation would explode. That was when the arrow shot out at high speed and pierced 3 inches into whatever it hit. If the target was a human body, the sharp end would have already pierced 3 inches into it, and then there would be an explosion. At the thought of this scene, all the martial grandmasters shuddered in fear. This was simply asking for their lives. However, on the other hand, the heavy sniper crossbow that Wang Sheng had created was meant to take the enemy's life. With this added insurance, even if there was a small probability that some legendary experts could catch the arrow with their muscles, the subsequent explosion would still be fatal. Piercing 3 inches into the body and then exploding was basically a design that left no chance of survival. Was it vicious? Vicious. Should they do it or not? Yes. Everyone was working, and Wang Sheng was the boss. Of course, they would listen to him. The first heavy sniper crossbow was a test product. What came next would be Wang Sheng's real weapon. As for those custom-made armor-piercing arrows, Wang Sheng ordered 200 of them. Out of more than 100 gene of special metals, more than 50 gene had been used. The rest was left in the House of the Marquis to be used the next time Wang Sheng needed it. There were 200 armor-piercing arrows. As for the ordinary steel arrows, Wang Sheng had ordered 500 of them. Old Tai would inspect and hand them over to him to deal with ordinary experts. In actual fact, against 7th and 8th degree realm experts, these ordinary fine steel arrows were enough. The power of these arrows was not small, but the only problem was that they could only be used once. For Wang Sheng, this was not a problem. For the participating martial grandmasters, they had thoroughly enjoyed the convenience brought about by standardized production. Not every part was produced by the same person, but as long as the size was specified, it didn't matter who produced it. It could be used. In particular, the use of high-precision measuring tools allowed everyone to see the advantages of precision production. To put it bluntly, if they still used the original ruler, even if everyone was a martial grandmaster, they would not be able to make such a powerful heavy sniper crossbow. In addition, during the manufacturing process, Wang Sheng gave a few suggestions and created a few simple and practical machines. For example, a machine for drawing lines, a grinding machine, a bench for fixing various angles, and even a simple machine tool that could only be used for simple cutting. There was also a drilling machine that was used to punch out the inner wall of the gun. In order to create an absolutely straight inner wall, Wang Sheng had no choice but to tell them a method of using 3 metal plates to grind the base plane to create the foundation. To Wang Sheng, these machines could not be any more simple and crude. But to these martial grandmasters who had spent their entire lives creating, it was tantamount to letting them see a brand new world. In Wang Sheng's words, any of these machines, if they could study them to the extreme, they would have the chance to become an industry leader that surpassed martial grandmasters. The first heavy sniper crossbow was dismantled, and everyone checked each part to see if there was any excessive wear and tear after shooting hundreds of times. In addition, some parts had to be adjusted according to Wang Sheng's usage habits. After the inspection, Wang Sheng was relieved. There was nothing wrong with the parts. Basically, after careful maintenance, the parts of the first crossbow could be used as spare parts for a real heavy sniper crossbow. The rest of the work was carried out in an orderly manner. While waiting for the introduction of the new weapon, Wang Sheng did 2 things. The first was to personally make a trip to the opposite gate and discuss with Steward Zhou the requirements of the people that the royal family wanted to bring in this time. To put it bluntly, because they were going to the core of the ground of Thousand Despair, they had to reduce the number of people as much as possible. It was best to limit the number of people to 5. If there were too many, it would be too big of a target and not easy to take care of. They had to be experts who could protect themselves. They could not be unable to deal with a few 8th or 9th stage demonic beasts. It would be best if they were all in the legendary realm. The most important requirement was to listen to orders without any reason. This was the iron rule. Entering the ground of Thousand Despair was an iron rule. Not to mention entering the core of the ground of Thousand Despair, a careless mistake could cost one their life. Since they could be considered to be on the same side, they had to make this clear first. They did not want to be like Commander Liu, who had other thoughts. The second thing was to find a way to determine the conditions for Qianyo's transformation. This was the foundation for future cultivation advancement, and was also the capital that allowed Wang Sheng to survive in this world. How could Wang Sheng leave it idle? Qianyo, shaped like a yellow dragon with scales, loved music and often squatted at the front of the zither to enjoy the plucked strings. Since he loved music, Wang Sheng did not need to confirm that Qianyo's advancement was definitely related to music. Perhaps he would have to listen to more than 1,000 beautiful songs. In order to verify this, Wang Sheng specially asked Mayer to invite a singing troupe for him. In the end, after Mayer pouted and was angry for a long time, she still invited a troupe to perform for Wang Sheng. When he saw the singing troupe, Wang Sheng was dumbfounded. They were all young and beautiful women, all dressed in revealing and seductive clothes. It was no wonder that Mayer was unhappy when she heard Wang Sheng's request. Luckily, when Wang Sheng pulled Mayer along to listen to the singing, Mayer regained her smile. These ordinary singers were still too inexperienced to mess around Mayer. Chapter 624. Seeing that Wang Sheng was really enjoying the music with his eyes closed, Mayer knew that she had misunderstood. Thinking about it, she was so charming and dressed up in Wang Sheng's favorite way. But Wang Sheng did not have any intention to make a move on her. How could he casually find a few vulgar singers to make a move on? To tell the truth, this was the first time Wang Sheng seriously listened to the music of this world. Although every big family basically raised a singer, Wang Sheng did not have one in the Marquis Mansion, and there was no such thing in the Emperor's house. This kind of feeling was quite fresh. At least Wang Sheng had not experienced it on Earth. At the end of the song, Wang Sheng's soul origin space began to faintly change. Wang Sheng understood that this was the right path, which was to listen to all kinds of music. Thinking about his own cultivation path, it was also strange. If it wasn't making more than 1,000 kinds of delicious food to taste, it was smelling all kinds of fragrances, it was learning calligraphy or the 9 secret words. In any case, it was not the same as ordinary people. He really did not know if the experts of this world would laugh at him if they knew the way to advance his soul origin space. A song only made a slight change in the soul origin space, but it was not enough to clearly show the trend of Qianyo's transformation. Wang Sheng closed his eyes and made a gesture, indicating to the singers to continue, but there was one thing that could not be repeated. The girls looked at the appearance of Mayer and next to Wang Sheng and knew that it was impossible for them to have anything to do with this noble marquis today. They could only honestly play the zither and sing. However, everyone knew that the house of Changshan Ho was one of the few rich and powerful families, so everyone gave it their all and displayed 100% of their strength, striving to win Wang Sheng's joy. For the whole day, except for the break and eating time, the singers took turns to sing and play the zither. During this period, Wang Sheng maintained his sitting posture and closed his eyes to appreciate, without any other thoughts. In the evening, a female singer finished singing. Wang Sheng opened his eyes and stood up. He ordered Steward Wang, "Reward her." Then he led Mayer back to the back hall. In the bathroom prepared by Mayer, Wang Sheng took a bath while pondering the changes in his spirit space. Ever since a certain female singer had finished singing a song in the afternoon, his source spirit had changed. The cloud trail turned towards Qianyo. However, Qianyo did not appear, and the cloud trail turned into a row of standard black and white piano keys. The singers at the back sang more than a dozen songs in a row. Wang Sheng felt that the path of the piano keys had moved a step forward. Seeing this scene, Wang Sheng was sure that the only way for his origin spirit to advance again was to listen to music. It was possible that it wasn't just that. From Wang Sheng's previous experiences, the later parts would require Wang Sheng to compose a few songs himself. But for the time being, Wang Sheng could still rely on listening to the music of this world to advance his origin spirit space. Before, Wang Sheng was with the great grandmasters and had to watch over the production of each component, but there was no need for that now. If Wang Sheng watched over them at this time, it would be an insult to the great grandmasters. Therefore, Wang Sheng had Mei find a group of musicians to play for Wang Sheng every day. Other than regular cultivation, Wang Sheng's remaining time was to listen to different music and different instruments. When the real parts of the heavy sniper crossbow were finished, Wang Sheng's piano keys had already moved forward more than a dozen steps. The assembly definitely needed Wang Sheng's participation, so the assembly took another day. He brought the brand new heavy sniper crossbow to the shooting range of the Old Lord Monastery in the suburbs of the capital to test it, which took another 2 days. When he finally confirmed that this heavy sniper crossbow could be used, Wang Sheng returned to the Marquis's mansion and went to the opposite door to inform them that they could set off tomorrow. The size of the heavy sniper crossbow was not big, but it was more than a meter long. Adding the crossbow arm, it was more than 2 feet wide. As for Wang Sheng's supreme-grade storage ring, it had to be placed diagonally in order. The next morning, Wang Sheng went to Mei place to say goodbye. Before leaving, he kissed Mei's forehead, causing Mei to tear up. Wang Sheng left together with the old Taoist priest. The old Taoist priest was still dressed in the red card assassin's attire when he was acting as Wang Sheng's guard. The people from the imperial family did not meet up with Wang Sheng directly. Instead, they went ahead and waited at the place where head steward Li killed Commander Liu. That place was already part of the grounds of despair. What surprised Wang Sheng was that the imperial family only sent 3 experts this time, and they were all people that Wang Sheng was familiar with. Head steward Li, steward Zhou, and old eunuch Shun were all present. They were all legendary experts. Is the imperial family not going to live? If the 3 of you are all sent out, who will protect the emperor? This was the first question that Wang Sheng asked when he saw the 3 of them. The 3 old monsters of the imperial family did not know whether to laugh or cry. The emperor naturally has guards to protect him. The imperial family will not fall, just because the 3 of us are not around. Head steward Li smiled bitterly and replied, "It's too dangerous inside. No matter how I think about it, the 3 of us are the most likely to be able to go in and come out. All right, it's easy to get things done with acquaintances. That's good too." Wang Sheng nodded and introduced the old Taoist Ling, Su, to the 3 of them. "The bodyguard that I won the bet, the red card assassin of the worry-free city. He still has one more chance. We all want to see what's inside. We'll be companions along the way, so don't make things difficult for me." Be it the 3 great priests or the old Taoist, all of them nodded at the same time. At this time, Wang Sheng was the leader, and no one had any objections. Seeing that everyone was ready, Wang Sheng waved his hand and set off immediately. Apart from Wang Sheng, the rest of the team of 5 were all experts of the legendary realm. Naturally, they moved very quickly. With Wang Sheng leading the way, they drove away the insects in the land of Thousand Despair. Along the way, they did not take a detour at all if they encountered any powerful demonic beasts. With the 4 of them together, no matter how powerful the demonic beast was, it would only die if it escaped slowly. They advanced in a straight line, and it only took them 6 days to arrive at the edge of the core region of the land of Thousand Despair like they were crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. This speed was comparable to the main road leading to the Imperial Treasury's camp in the worry-free city. After walking along the edge of the land of Thousand Despair for dozens of miles, Wang Sheng let the 4 of them release all their senses. With the help of the formation stone, they once again looked for a breakthrough point to enter the core area. The previous breakthrough point was chosen by a few experts who had just entered the legendary realm, and it may not be the most suitable one. Moreover, entering and exiting the same place multiple times might lead to some changes in the core area. It was better to find a new breakthrough point. The 4 experts made a new choice, and very quickly, they determined 2 points in the area of dozens of miles. After Wang Sheng sensed them one by one, he chose the point on the left, and the 5 of them quietly entered the core area of the land of Thousand Despair. On the last day, The area that the five of them walked through was swept by a large group of man-eating ants after they entered the core area, and there was no trace of them. Chapter 625. After Wang Sheng completed the heavy sniper crossbow, the great grandmasters didn't need to stay in the Marquis's residence anymore. After all, they were from the Pavilion of Delicacy and were used to living in the Sky Workshop. After greeting Wang Sheng, they returned to the Sky Workshop. Wang Sheng didn't restrict them, nor did he tell the great grandmasters not to reveal his new weapon. He believed in the professional integrity of the great grandmasters. Of course, he believed in his design even more. After knowing that Old Tai and the others had returned to the Sky Workshop, the Pavilion Master of Delicacy immediately appeared in front of them. Someone had sealed off the area outside, so no one could hear their conversation. The Pavilion Master of Delicacy was curious about what exactly Wang Sheng had made that required so many great grandmasters and tens of millions of gold coins. Could it be just for a weapon? Wang Sheng didn't say that he couldn't reveal his weapon, so Old Tai didn't hide it for the Pavilion Master of Delicacy. He told her directly that Wang Sheng had made a special crossbow. In Wang Sheng's words, it was a composite heavy sniper crossbow. After spending so much effort, so many great grandmasters, so many top-grade materials, and tens of millions of gold coins, he made a crossbow. The Pavilion Master of Delicacy couldn't understand Wang Sheng anymore. Wasn't this squandering too ridiculous? Even if Chongqing Marquis's residence was rich, they couldn't afford to spend like this, right? A crossbow that can kill a legendary realm expert with a shooting range of 20 kilometers. Old Tai and the other great grandmasters looked at each other. Everyone had a faint smile on their faces, so they could only explain. Kill a legendary realm expert with a single arrow? The Pavilion Master of Delicacy had been running the Pavilion of Delicacy for so many years. How could she not know what this meant? She almost jumped up on the spot. How is that possible? In the beginning, Wang Sheng's simple armor-piercing arrows had allowed everyone to understand that the arrows would leave a large hole in anyone's body and they might be able to survive. However, with the addition of the explosive magic array, that bit of hope in everyone's hearts disappeared. As long as they were hit, they would die without a doubt. It didn't matter if he was a legendary master or something else. He would definitely die if he was hit by the arrow. Defensive formations and armors were useless. They had seen Wang Sheng test the finished armor-piercing arrows with their own eyes. According to Wang Sheng's request, the steel blocks, 1 foot thick and 2 feet thick, were placed 2 miles away. The arrow pierced through the steel block and flew far away. The steel block itself was smashed into pieces. The 2 foot thick steel block was also pierced, but didn't go through. Only the tip of the arrow pierced through the steel block, and the arrow was stuck at the very end. However, a large hole had also been blasted by the explosion formation inside. No matter how high one's cultivation was, no matter how strong one's defense was, could a human body be stronger than a 2 foot thick piece of steel? Of the steel blocks that were hit, the 1 foot thick one was directly blown into pieces. The 2 foot thick one was slightly better. There was a small hole on the front, but there was a big hole on the back. If one was hit by this armor-piercing arrow, it would be a miracle if they could die in one piece, let alone survive. The exquisite Pavilion Master refused to believe it no matter what. However, all the great grandmasters present were looking at her as if she was a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. The exquisite Pavilion Master had no choice but to believe that Wang Sheng had really made an amazing weapon. How far did you say it was? Pavilion Master Ling Long suddenly realized that Old Man Tai had just said a very exaggerated number. She couldn't help but ask in surprise. 10 miles. This time, it wasn't Old Man Tai who answered, but Master Wu. At 10 miles, it can still kill a 3rd or 4th Realm Master. It's just that the accuracy is not as good. You guys must be working together to trick me. Pavilion Master Ling Long smiled bitterly. It was rare for so many great grandmasters to be in the mood to team up and play around with him, the exquisite Pavilion Master. However, when he looked at the crowd, none of them looked like they were joking. Immediately, he stopped smiling bitterly and asked in shock, "Is it really 10 kilometers?" Everyone nodded silently. Master Wu added, "We saw it with our own eyes." As soon as he said this, everyone nodded in unison. A crossbow with a range of 10 miles can kill a legendary realm master with one arrow. Pavilion Master Ling Long's eyes lit up. She looked at Old Man Tai and asked, "You guys remember what to do, right?" Everyone knew what Pavilion Master Ling Long was thinking when they saw the look in his eyes. Old Man Tai thought for a moment and said, "This is Chang Sheng Ho's unique weapon. We made it without his permission. Isn't that against the rules?" Although this world was backward, the craftsmen had always abided by an ancient rule. Without permission, they would not make things that were invented by others. This was also the reason why every time Wang Sheng asked for something new, the owners of the small shops in Carefree City would give him 1,000 gold coins. This was the rule of the craftsmen, and it was also what they insisted on. "I'll buy it from Chang Sheng Ho." Pavilion Master Ling Long was definitely a wealthy person. Without hesitation, she said, "You don't have to worry about this. Chang Sheng Ho is definitely a businessman. Don't worry." Based on Wang Sheng's previous behavior, no one had any objections to Pavilion Master Ling Long's words. Seeing Pavilion Master Ling Long's excited expression, everyone knew that he wanted to do business. However, after thinking about it, Old Man Tai shook his head and said, "It's useless." "Why? Did he hide something?" Pavilion Master Ling Long asked hurriedly. "Yes, we can make it." Old Man Tai shook his head, indicating that Wang Sheng did not hide anything. After thinking for a while, he said, "It's just that other than Chang Sheng Ho, no one else can use it. Tell me about it." Pavilion Master Ling Long was also confused. She did not understand, so she asked Old Man Tai to explain. "That heavy sniper crossbow needs tens of thousands of pounds of force to load it. Other than Chang Sheng Ho, who else has the strength to load it?" Old Man Tai said the first reason. "We can use animal power to load it. As long as we can shoot an arrow and kill a legendary realm expert, it's worth it." Pavilion Master Ling Long quickly replied, "The shooting range is so far. Other than Chang Sheng Ho, who else can aim at a legendary realm expert from a few miles away?" Old Man Tai said with a bitter smile, "How can Chang Sheng Ho use it?" Pavilion Master Ling Long asked. "Master Ho has a long telescope that can see things very far away." Old Man Tai quickly replied, "We don't know how to make this thing." Sure enough, he still hid something. Pavilion Master Ling Long sighed and said, "It's the same to use it at close range. It's worth it to exchange it for the life of a legendary realm expert." Pavilion Master, tens of millions of gold coins is enough to hire dozens of assassins to kill that legendary realm expert dozens of times. Old Man Tai directly threw this answer to Pavilion Master Ling Long. Chapter 626. The Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion was stunned. Just as Old Tai had said, the cost was enough to hire an expert to kill a legendary realm expert at close range. However, Pavilion Master, you should still give Chang Sheng Ho a huge sum of money. Old Tai reminded the Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion. "Why?" The Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion snapped. She suddenly realized that she was in front of a great grandmaster and felt that something was wrong. She hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. "Old Tai, I'm not targeting you, but you should at least tell me why. Chang Sheng Ho gave us 2 methods to make tools that can measure 1/100th of an inch and 1/10,000th of an inch." Old Tai answered very seriously. He didn't care about the Pavilion Master's attitude, as if he hadn't heard anything. 1/100th of an inch. The Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion couldn't sit still when she heard this. She immediately jumped up. He was the Pavilion Master of the Exquisite Pavilion, and he was definitely a professional in the forging industry. How could he not understand the concept of 1/100th of an inch? However, before he could finish a question, he heard the last 10,000th of an inch and was immediately dumbfounded. He jumped up and stood on the spot. His face was full of disbelief as he stared blankly at Old Tai. It was as if he had turned into a wooden man. "It's true. We brought back all the things. Old Tai smiled at the pavilion master and gestured for the great grandmaster to take out a vernier caliper and a spiral micrometer. He then said, "We also know how to make these things. These two things are worth compensating Chongqing Ho with a huge sum of money, right?" This kind of precision measuring tool could directly raise the standards of the entire handicraft manufacturing industry by one or even several levels. The great grandmaster in charge of making the vernier caliper and spiral micrometer would directly set the industry standards. This was a supreme honor. All right, this was a grand occasion for the entire handicraft manufacturing industry, so the pavilion master of the exquisite pavilion agreed without hesitation. He had no choice but to agree. If he dared to shake his head, the group of great grandmasters would immediately leave the pavilion of the exquisite pavilion and go to Chongqing Ho's residence. Although they didn't get the heavy sniper crossbow, they got the manufacturing methods of these two measuring tools, which was definitely worth it for the Linglong Pavilion. As mentioned before, these two tools meant that they could set the length standard for the entire industry. The reason why the Linglong Pavilion could become the first choice of many great masters was that it had a variety of talents and industry standards. However, it was undeniable that measuring length was the most basic and most widespread tool required by almost every industry. Setting up such a standard was no different from setting up the standard for the whole world. In this world, how many people's words could be accurate in all aspects? The emperor couldn't do it, and neither could the feudal vassals. However, the Pavilion of Delicacy, which sold vernier calipers and screw micrometers, could. This was influence and also a symbol of strength. Wang Sheng, the old Taoist, and the three royal consecrators had arrived at the edge of the world of ice and snow. They had all heard from Wang Sheng that after entering the core area of the land of 1,000 extremes, the jungle would suddenly disappear and turn into a sunken basin, which would be covered by ice and snow. Although it was so close, the climate was completely different. Above them was a tropical and temperate jungle, and below them was a cold and icy zone. It was really amazing. When they had heard Wang Sheng's words, they had all felt that it was amazing, but also a bit impossible. However, when they saw it with their own eyes, they knew that it was true. This time, they were more prepared than the last time. Everyone had prepared warm clothes and put them on the spot. This was not just the kind that relied on the formation to keep warm, but real thick fur to keep warm. This was to prevent them from being frozen into popsicles when they were injured or had insufficient spiritual energy. Standing at the edge of the world of ice and snow, Wang Sheng started to tie a rope to a tree in the jungle. Although with the strength of the five of them, they could easily climb up from the basin below without a rope, but Wang Sheng had his own words. There was no harm in being prepared. Who knew if they would come out slowly on their own, or if they would be chased out with injuries all over their bodies? Therefore, it was better to be prepared in advance. At worst, it would just be a waste of a rope. In the land of 1,000 extremes, Wang Sheng's words were the absolute will. At least for now, no one in the team of 5 would oppose him, especially when it came to this kind of preparation that concerned everyone's escape route. If one's cultivation had really reached the legendary realm, their mentality would become more and more cautious. On the contrary, those who had just become a bit more outstanding would become boundlessly arrogant. They would always think that the emperor was number 1 and they were number 2. Perhaps this was because the older one was in the Jianghu, the more timid they became. When they were preparing to go down to the ice and snow basin, they saw the first demon beast in the world of ice and snow at the edge of the jungle. It was too far away, so they couldn't see clearly what kind of demon beast it was. Suddenly, it sprang out from under the flat ice and snow, grabbed something with its mouth, and ate it heartily. As it gnawed, it looked in the direction of Wang Sheng and the others. Everyone could feel the unruliness and pressure in that savage gaze. Other than Wang Sheng, the other 4 people had a whole new understanding of the demon beasts in the core region. The level of this demon beast was at least at the middle of the 8th degree realm. However, in this core region, it was only fit to stay at the edge of the world of ice and snow. Marquis, I heard that you forged a weapon. Can you show it to us and broaden our horizons? Manager Li looked at the fierce demon beast from afar and suddenly smiled at Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng had gathered a large number of great grandmasters to forge a weapon in the Marquis's residence. This was no secret to the imperial family. Apart from the fact that they weren't clear about what he was forging, there were always other clues. The servants in charge of serving the imperial family would occasionally overhear the contents of the great grandmaster's infatuation. In summary, at least the imperial family knew that Wang Sheng had forged a long-range attack crossbow. Everyone was curious. Those who hadn't seen it with their own eyes were itching. The people of the imperial family were even more so. They couldn't wait to snatch Wang Sheng's weapon for research. Who wouldn't be curious about a weapon forged by more than 10 great grandmasters? All right, Wang Sheng didn't refuse and directly agreed. Sometimes, when you had a weapon of mass destruction in your hands, letting others know was a form of deterrence. The effect was better than hiding it. With a thought, the compound heavy sniper crossbow appeared in Wang Sheng's hands. Usually, this heavy sniper crossbow was loaded and an armor-piercing arrow was stored in the storage ring. It could be taken out and fired. With the flat end and the sniper style, Wang Sheng aimed at the demon beast that looked like a white pig 6 miles away. His finger moved and the trigger was pulled. The sound of the bowstring, an arrow breaking through the sound barrier, rang out. Wang Sheng put down the heavy sniper crossbow and reloaded it. Chapter 6:27. Steward Li, Steward Zhou, and old eunuch Shun were all staring intently at that demonic beast from afar. They had totally not expected that Wang Sheng would show them his weapon from such a far distance. Their initial assumption was that Wang Sheng would agree to it and go down together with everyone, quietly approaching a few hundred steps away and using the crossbow to attack. One must know that to be able to shoot an 8th-stage realm intermediate and above demonic beast from a few hundred steps away, that was already considered as the best crossbow. The best crossbow used by the top exponents in the Royal Guards was also nothing more than that. As for the power, that would depend on the user's standard. If the expert wielding the crossbow had a high cultivation and was able to infuse his own cultivation into the arrow, then killing a powerful demonic beast with one arrow would be an easy feat if the standard of the person wielding the crossbow wasn't good enough. Then at most he would only be able to hit the target, and the effect might even be reflected off the demonic beast's skin. But what the three of them had not expected was that Wang Sheng actually stood right here and shot an arrow from above. From the sound, although the three of them could deduce that the speed of the crossbow was very fast, but after all, the target was at least 6 miles away from here, so wasn't it a joke to shoot it from such a distance? They had long heard that Wang Sheng had a weapon which could take a person's life from a few miles away, but they didn't know which uncanny expert had forged it. It was rumored that as long as it was a top exponent of 6th-stage realm and above, they would not be hurt if they were slightly prepared. Wang Sheng had only gathered a group of grandmasters from exquisite pavilion, and he was able to forge such a magical weapon which could take a person's life from a few miles away. Just as the three of them were in bewilderment, that demonic beast far away suddenly exploded into a pile of flesh and blood without any warning. The distance was too far, and the crowd couldn't hear the sound of the explosion, but the scene of the explosion fell into their eyes. How could that be possible? That was a demonic beast of 8th-stage realm intermediate and above. How did it explode earlier? The three of them actually couldn't see it clearly. On the other side, Wang Sheng had already reloaded a new arrow. Then, he looked at the three dumbfounded old eunuchs and laughed inwardly. What a joke! The speed of the arrow had reached 6 times the speed of sound. It would be strange if the 3 old eunuchs could see the arrow clearly. From the moment the arrow was released, Wang Sheng knew that it would hit. This was the confidence that Wang Sheng's enhanced vision and the scope gave Wang Sheng. The sniper's intuition was almost never wrong. That white pig-like monster was not a very fast monster. It would not even be able to hear the sound from this side before it would be shot. Previously, Wang Sheng had always been shooting targets in the shooting range. He had never shot a real demonic beast before. Strictly speaking, this was the first time. Wang Sheng was also looking forward to the results. However, with just a glance, Wang Sheng already knew what the result would be. He didn't pay much attention to it. After reloading the crossbow and putting it back into the storage ring, Wang Sheng then faced the three old eunuchs. "What do you think?" Wang Sheng asked in a provocative tone. "Not bad," Manager Li replied with his throat pinched. Not only not bad, from a distance of 6 to 7 miles, he shot an 8-stage late-stage demonic beast. How could the word not bad be used to describe it? But other than this word, Manager Li couldn't say anything else. With such a long-distance killing weapon, what if Wang Sheng pointed this crossbow at Tianzi from outside the palace? Manager Li subconsciously thought of this. Then, Manager Li realized that he was thinking too much. If Wang Sheng really wanted to kill Tianzi, there were many opportunities to be with Tianzi face to face. Although Steward Zhou was by his side every time, sometimes Steward Zhou would be sent away and only the two of them could meet alone. If Wang Sheng had the intention to kill, he would have succeeded long ago. There was no need for any special crossbow at all. Not bad, old eunuch Shen added. He didn't look at Wang Sheng, but kept staring at the demonic beast far away. For old eunuch Shen to give such an evaluation, it meant that the crossbow had already entered old eunuch Shen's eyes. "Let's go down and take a look now." Old Taoist Ling Su seemed to have expected this. He reminded them, "It's not bad to check the crossbow's effect at close range. If we drag it out for too long, the smell of blood might attract other things." Everyone agreed. Everyone quickly followed the rope down into the world of ice and snow and ran at full speed towards the demonic beast corpse. Although it was just a short distance of 6 miles, Wang Sheng had raised his sense of sight and smell to the maximum. The 9 words of incantation, coupled with the vigilance of the little person with battle awareness, didn't dare to relax for even a moment. After a few days of training in the land of 1,000 devastations, the 5 of them worked very well together. The 3 old eunuchs and old Taoist Ling Su protected Wang Sheng in the middle. The formation was not messed up. The 3 imperial consecrators took turns to be the vanguard and rushed towards the demonic beast's corpse. They were lucky. Wang Sheng didn't notice anything unusual along the way. When they got close to the demonic beast's corpse, the smell of blood could be smelled from more than a mile away. However, Wang Sheng didn't notice any powerful demonic beasts in this area. The 5 of them got close to the demonic beast's corpse safely. Advanced stage of the 8th stage. When they arrived, Steward Zhou stooped down and touched the largest piece of the demon beast's corpse before giving an assessment of his cultivation base. The demonic beast's original form should be a fanged swine, but it had changed into something that no one could recognize. It had white skin, white hair, and an unbelievably strong cultivation. It was many times stronger than an ordinary fanged swine. No one knew the specific reason, but it should have something to do with the core of the land of 1,000 devastations. Something's coming. Before everyone could take a closer look, Wang Sheng had already pointed in a direction and warned. The smell of blood here must have attracted some demonic beasts. Old Taoist Ling Su was the most practical. He stepped forward and pulled out the 2-fanged swine's fangs. He then quickly cut off a few pieces of meat from the white pig's corpse and threw them into a storage ring. The 3 old eunuchs followed suit and quickly cut off some meat. Wang Sheng pointed in a direction, and the 5 of them quickly left the area. Although the demonic beast might not be a threat to the 5 of them, the core of the land of 1,000 devastations was filled with danger. There was no need to fight to avoid wasting their strength. They had come here to explore, not to improve their cultivation or fight. After identifying the direction, Wang Sheng directed everyone to walk towards the expert they met last time. As he walked, Wang Sheng took out several gauze strips with large mesh holes and gestured for them to cover their faces. "Why?" Steward Li asked as he covered his face with the gauze. They would support him without hesitation, but they could ask for the reason. This was the agreement that Wang Sheng had reached with the 3 imperial consecrators. Chapter 628. To prevent snow blindness. Wang Sheng replied quickly. These gauze mesh holes were very large and would not block one's vision, but allowed people to see something else in the snow. They would not develop snow blindness from staring at the vast white snow for a long time. None of the four, including old Taoist Ling Su, had heard of snow blindness. But they had all heard Wang Sheng's experience of entering the core of the land of thousand despair. Tang Laowu and the red card killer's eyes were still uncomfortable when they returned to the Imperial Treasury's camp. Before they escaped, they had almost lost all their vision. It was Wang Sheng who had carried them out. All the major vassal states had sent people to those who lived in the snow to learn from them, hoping to know how to prevent this disease that no one could name. Even the royal family was no exception. They had secretly sent people to ask. The feedback they got was that if one stayed in the snow for a long time, it was easy to get this disease if one was not careful. This disease had no name before, but now Wang Sheng had finally given everyone a name. It was called snow blindness. But those who lived in the snow knew about this disease, but they did not know how to prevent it. In fact, they rarely stayed in the snow for a long time. Most of the time, they would stay in the village. And the village was densely populated, and the various houses could not all be white, so they would not get snow blindness at all. It was not a life-threatening disease, as long as they closed their eyes and rested for a few days. Not all places were like the core of the land of thousand despair, where there were demonic beasts that could easily kill 8th or 9th stage experts. So far, the major vassal states and the royal family had only received this information. They knew that this disease would cause trouble if one stayed in the snow for a long time, but they did not know how to prevent it. Treatment was also based on rest, and it would naturally recover. If they really wanted to know how to prevent it, they could only look for Wang Sheng. The royal family's 3 great masters were now smiling bitterly. Who would have thought that the prevention method that made the major vassal states difficult, and the method to buy it at high price, was so simple in Wang Sheng's hands? A piece of rough gauze would suffice. Who knew how many people's jaws would drop when they heard this? This method is worth 1,000,000 gold coins. You'd better not reveal it to me. Wang Sheng joked with a smile. He was really joking. Who were the 3 great reverends? The 3 treasures of the imperial family had experienced countless bloody storms in the imperial palace. What they relied on was their calm mouth, ruthless heart, and sharp eyes. Would they leak the information? That must be crazy. The 3 old eunuchs smiled, but did not say anything. Their expressions could not be seen through the gauze, but at this moment, their faces were definitely filled with ridicule towards the various vassal states. Wang Sheng had taken the initiative to mention the problem that the feudal vassals had tried their best to solve. This was the difference between them. The biggest difference was that Wang Sheng had clearly told them that the first batch of people who went in were to attract the attention of the demonic beasts and give Wang Sheng a chance to escape alive. They were completely cannon fodder. But now they were different. At least from the beginning until now, they had not encountered a fatal threat. Although everyone's cultivation was high, and Wang Sheng had also advanced once, Wang Sheng at that time was indeed not able to advance and retreat as freely as he was now. They still needed someone to distract those ferocious demonic beasts so that Wang Sheng could escape safely. By the way, this method isn't free. Later, Chief Stewardly, let me have a look at the information on innate charming bones in the palace's collection. After giving the instructions, Wang Sheng asked Chief Steward Li for payment without holding back. Okay. Chief Steward Li looked at Wang Sheng with a strange gaze through the gauze and agreed. Just by looking at the information, Chief Steward Li could make the decision without the emperor's approval. Originally, the 3 old eunuchs were still a little worried about the snow blindness. Previously, Wang Sheng did not mention it. Now that it was solved with a piece of gauze, they could completely relax. According to the direction pointed out by Wang Sheng, the 5 of them only encountered 1 demonic beast attack and arrived at a place about 5 miles away from that terrifying expert. Use any method that can conceal your aura. Wang Sheng said to everyone in a very low voice. Try to be as quiet as possible. Try not to make a sound. Don't act rashly. The 4 of them nodded. This was already a dangerous place. If they did not act according to Wang Sheng's orders, they might not even know how they died. The old eunuchs and the others had their own methods to conceal everyone's voices. The 3 of them were on the periphery and it was enough to cover up the voices of Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. At this time, old Taoist Ling Su also showed his power. Once he used the Xing formula of the 9 symbolic words, although he could not do it as naturally as Wang Sheng. Old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was high. At the very least, his and Wang Sheng's aura suddenly became abnormally weak. Even the 3 eunuchs, who were very close to them, could not believe that these auras belonged to 2 living people if they had not been looking at their figures. The 3 old eunuchs had never dared to let down their guard against an expert like old Taoist Ling Su. Now that they had seen how powerful the old Taoist was, they did not dare to underestimate him. Under Wang Sheng's command, the team of 5 maintained this method and carefully walked toward the area where the terrifying expert was. The 5 of them walked carefully for 2 hours, almost using small steps to cover the distance of 5 miles. Such caution was not without reward. At least, Wang Sheng had not felt the anger of that terrifying expert so far. The last time they came here, Wang Sheng already knew that they had been discovered from far away. That was why when they climbed up the small ice slope, one of them was knocked unconscious by the sound of the terrifying expert's voice. Now, the 5 of them were at the bottom of the small ice slope, and they could see the terrifying expert from above. Wang Sheng could feel the existence of the expert, but he could not feel the expert's anger. Wang Sheng looked at old Taoist Ling Su, and old Taoist Ling Su nodded slightly. Wang Sheng turned to the 3 old eunuchs, and the 3 old eunuchs also nodded slightly. Wang Sheng made a gesture, and everyone climbed on the ice surface very gently. Then they climbed to the top of the ice slope bit by bit according to the formation and technique they had just used. When they reached the top of the ice slope, they quietly poked their heads out under Wang Sheng's instructions. Then they were all stunned. In the area that was as smooth as a mirror, the terrifying expert was still there, but he was not in the state that Wang Sheng had seen him last time. He was now sitting at a place more than 100 feet away from them, cultivating. From the looks of it, he was probably cultivating. Old Taoist Ling Su took a few glances at him, and then quietly retracted his head. The others did not look too long, and all retracted their heads. Then, Wang Sheng saw old Taoist silently say 2 words to him. He could not hear the voice, but Wang Sheng could see the movement of his lips. The 3 words that old Taoist had said were clearly not human. Chapter 629. The 5 of them cautiously retreated the way they had just come. To be on the safe side, they retreated the way they came and only dared to speak when they were 5 miles away. That expert isn't human. Wang Sheng was the most surprised. He was the first to ask after retreating. The 3 great consecrators of the imperial family had also witnessed the power of that peerless expert. Although they hadn't exchanged blows or clashed much, just the aura of that expert's cultivation was enough to suppress the 3 of them to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. If they were to really fight, there would only be one outcome for them: death. However, the 3 consecrators were not surprised by old Taoist Ling Su's judgment. It seemed that they had come to a similar conclusion. A demonic beast disguised as a human? Wang Sheng asked again when he saw that no one spoke. It's not a disguise. Old Taoist Ling Su shook his head seriously. When a demonic beast cultivation reaches the peak of the legendary realm, it will be able to cultivate into a human form. Then, it will start to cultivate according to our human cultivation method. Isn't that the same as becoming a spirit? Wang Sheng was shocked. Could there be such a fantasy in this world? However, thinking about it, the existence of a spirit in this world was already a fantasy enough. No matter how outrageous it was not surprising. I saw one a few decades ago. Since this topic was brought up, old Taoists decided to speak freely. It was in a land of 1,000 extremities, less than 10 miles away from the worry-free city's gate. At that time, the worry-free city mobilized more than 30 red card assassins and more than 100 green card assassins. In the end, only less than 20 of us survived. All of us were injured. I know who you are. Old Dao's voice had just fallen when old Daoist Shin suddenly said to old Daoist Ling Su, His expression was not clear, but his tone was completely like he was worshipping a senior. At that time, there were only 3 red card assassins who survived. 2 of them were crippled, and only you were unharmed. Not only old eunuch Shun, but Steward Li and Steward Zhou were also filled with deep veneration. When they faced old Taoist Ling Su, they no longer dared to show the arrogance that came from the imperial palace. They completely put themselves in the position of a junior. Although the 3 of them had heard that Wang Sheng was a red card assassin several decades ago, there were many red card assassins in Worry-Free City. There were more than 1 red card assassin from several decades ago, but only 3 of them had survived after participating in this major event. The identity of the old Taoist was obvious. A few decades ago, the 3 old imperial consecrators were nothing more than 3 insignificant eunuch experts. In front of this person, how many of them dared to act like elders? From Wang Sheng's words, it seemed that he had won the bet against this old red card and obtained 3 chances to be his bodyguard. This was simply the best kind of dog shit luck. How could Wang Sheng get such an opportunity? They were really curious about what kind of bet they had made. The 3 of them also felt that the aura of the expert was a little abnormal. Logically, such a strong expert should not be like that. Now, that the old Taoist said that he was not human, it immediately made sense. However, after the old questions were solved, new questions arose. Who in the world could arrange a formation that could imprison such an expert? They had only heard of demonic beasts cultivating human techniques. Could it be that there were demonic beasts cultivating human formations? There were too many questions, so much so that no one knew how to investigate. Go in and fight with that terrifying demonic beast? What a joke. Everyone was here to investigate, not to fight. If they really fought, it was possible that at least 3 of the 5 of them would be left behind. The ones who could confirm that they had left were definitely Wang Sheng and the old Taoist. There was no need to explain the reason. We've seen the expert. What should we do next? Wang Sheng asked. Leave or stay? The old Taoist did not speak. His current identity was Wang Sheng's bodyguard. It was fine to just follow Wang Sheng. The ones who could make the decision were the 3 old eunuchs. The 3 of them looked at each other and understood each other's intentions. We're already here. Chief Steward Li let out a long sigh and said 4 words. With these 4 words, Wang Sheng understood. Let's continue to look. Since we're already here, it would be a pity to waste the opportunity. Should we look elsewhere or continue to look at this here? Wang Sheng asked again. Everyone looked around at the white snowfield. Chief Steward Li said, let's go somewhere else. Take this. Whoever has the deepest understanding of formations will take it. Wang Sheng nodded and took out a formation stone from his storage ring. It can amplify the fluctuations of the formation by 10 times. The royal family had formation experts, but there were none with high cultivation levels. Similarly, the Old Lord Temple's talents in this area did not have high cultivation levels. The reason was very simple. Whether it was formations or pill refinement, they were occupations that consumed a lot of energy. It was already very impressive to be proficient in one. It was almost impossible to be proficient in formations and pill refinement while also having a high cultivation level. Tang Laowu from the Tang family was the same. He was not proficient in formations and only dabbled a little, but it was enough for him to detect the fluctuations of the formation. Steward Zhou, who took the formation stone, was the same. He knew some basic knowledge of formations. It would be enough if he could rely on this formation stone to detect the fluctuations of an unfamiliar formation. It did not require a high cultivation level in formations. We've been here before, so we don't need this. When Wang Sheng handed it over, he explained and specially reminded him seriously, but if you go to an unfamiliar place, you have to be careful of formations at all times. The aura of the formation here is very secretive. You must be careful. Steward Zhou took the formation stone and nodded firmly. Even if Wang Sheng did not say it, he also knew the reason to be cautious. How could he, who had become one of the 3 great consecrators after decades of scheming and killing in the royal palace, make such a careless mistake? Amidst these minor matters, the three of them discovered another outstanding aspect of Wang Sheng that was worthy of praise. As long as he came here once, he would remember the terrain and even the distribution of the formation. His memory was simply amazing. No wonder he could come and go as he pleased in the grounds of thousand extremities. The team of 5 continued on their way and turned in another direction. This choice seemed to be made by the 3 great consecrators of the royal family, but in fact, it was all within Wang Sheng's control. Since Wang Sheng asked, would the 3 old eunuchs be willing to come in and take a look at the terrifying demonic beast expert before leaving? This time, they turned in an unfamiliar direction. No one knew what was in front of them, but none of them had any expressions of fear. On the contrary, everyone was looking forward to it, as if they were confident that they would find something. The speed at the back was much slower because they had to check the fluctuations of the formation, so they did not dare to move too fast. Whether it was the 3 great consecrators or old Taoist Ling Su, they were all extremely cautious. They were 10,000 times more cautious than the batch of newly advanced 9th-degree experts who came in with Wang Sheng. Why did those fellows suffer casualties before they even saw the demonic beast expert? In fact, a large part of the reason was that those fellows were too arrogant and not cautious enough. Chapter 630. The 5 of them used one day and one night to walk more than 40 miles from the formation used to restrain demonic beasts. In the core of the grounds of Thousand Despair, there was danger at every step and no one dared to be careless. In addition, the entire place was covered with knee-high snow and ice. Wang Sheng did not take out his ski in front of the 3 imperial elders, so it was very difficult for them to walk. The icy cold wind blew wildly in the world of ice and snow. Wang Sheng also discovered that this was an icy cold whirlwind, slowly rotating around the center of the basin in the world of ice and snow. As it blew, it took away the heat and physical strength of the people, and at the same time, blew away all traces of their movement. At any time, as long as they looked back, they would find that the traces left behind when they moved had completely disappeared. In other words, if there was no one who was familiar with the terrain and could accurately grasp the direction to lead the way, it was impossible for those who came in to turn back. The reason why Dai Laochi and the rest died in here was because they could not find the way back, and in addition, they had snow blindness. Without Wang Sheng, only death awaited them. The physical exhaustion was too great. Even if the 3 imperial elders and old Taoist Ling Su were experts, their performance was not as good as Wang Sheng's. After all, Wang Sheng was a young man, and his strength had been enhanced, so it was easier for him to walk than 4 super experts. On account that they were on the same side, Wang Sheng led the 4 of them for a day and night, and after being exhausted, he still showed off his skills. Using local materials, Wang Sheng used the ice and snow that could be found everywhere to build an igloo that was half buried under the snow. He then started a fire in the igloo. There was firewood in the storage ring, a pot, and seasoning. He melted the snow and started to cook the meat that they had cut from the white fang swine. The meat of an 8th-stage demonic beast could not be cooked with ordinary fire and water. At this time, Steward Zhou took over the job and used his own spiritual energy to help cook. From the 7th-stage realm and above, the demonic beast's meat must be cooked by an expert using spiritual qi, otherwise it would never be cooked. Because it was in the core area of the ground of 1,000 Despair, Wang Sheng was cautious and built 2 layers of ice houses. Moreover, the ventilation holes were not in the same direction. This way, even if the aroma of cooking wafted out from the ventilation holes, it would condense in the middle of the 1st and 2nd layer. Very little of the aroma would be able to drift out. Separated by 2 layers of air vents, even a demon beast with a keen sense of smell might not be able to easily smell the scent of humans in the igloo. Wang Sheng had tried it outside. With his nose, if he couldn't smell it within 100 meters, then there shouldn't be any problem. As for the scent they left behind along the way, the fierce astral winds would quickly blow it away. The astral winds outside the ice house were fierce, but it was as warm as spring inside. Not only that, there was also steaming hot 8-stage realm late-stage fanged swine meat to eat. Compared to the outside, it was simply like two different worlds of ice and fire. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I know that fire can be lit on ice. Stewardly touched the cold floor and looked at the burning flame not far away, his face filled with disbelief. Stewardly was not the only one who was in disbelief. Steward Zhou and old eunuch Shun didn't say anything, but the expressions on their faces were undisguised. Old Taoist Ling Su wasn't any better. From time to time, he would look at the walls and roof of the igloo, afraid that it would melt while they were sitting down to rest. You must have cheated the people from the various vassal states the last time. Old eunuch Shun looked around and suddenly said, if you had brought those people to rest like this the last time, they wouldn't have lost so much. I had no choice. Wang Sheng didn't deny it, but he also didn't admit it. This time I brought the 4 of you, so I can do this without worry. Previously, my cultivation was low, and I couldn't discover the surrounding situation in advance. I stopped here for an hour to build the igloo. With so many people, the demonic beasts attracted were enough to fill our stomachs. At that time, those people weren't content with their lot, unlike the few of you who were so open-minded. At the end of the day, it was still a matter of cultivation. The 4 people in front of them could all hide their aura, so they wouldn't attract any demonic beasts unless the demonic beasts were close enough to smell them. Another reason was that with them around, Wang Xing didn't need to worry about his safety and could do whatever he wanted. Moreover, the 4 of them were old and experienced, so they wouldn't easily take the initiative to provoke the demonic beasts. They couldn't wait to leave without encountering any demonic beasts. Those people the last time couldn't do it. When they advanced in the campsite in the grounds of Thousand Despair, no matter if they were in the 8th or 9th stage realm, they were all complacent. When they encountered demonic beasts, they didn't think of hiding as much as they could, but to kill them. How could initiating a fight bring them a sense of security? Moreover, just like what Wang Sheng said, Wang Sheng's cultivation was also low, so he couldn't discover the demonic beasts quickly, so the danger was doubled. Wang Sheng was considered lucky to be able to carry 2 people out alive. Everyone thought about it and agreed with him. Wang Sheng was a person who would do whatever he wanted to those who he liked, but for those who he didn't like, he would watch the other party die without making a sound. He had a character. At least the 4 people present admired him. In the core area of the former grounds of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng and the other 4 not only enjoyed the piping hot demonic beast meat, but also had a good night's sleep. When they had rested enough, the 5 of them were in different spirits. Sufficient rest allowed everyone to adjust to their best condition. After walking for another 10 miles or so, Wang Sheng gestured for them to be careful. The 4 of them immediately put up their guard and looked around vigilantly. A few hundred meters ahead, there was a protruding area like a small hill. But Wang Sheng felt that something was wrong. All of them kept their aura to the minimum and carefully approached the small hill. When they got closer, they could clearly see that it was a small ice mountain. In a world of ice and snow, it was very normal to have a small ice mountain. They had seen it before, and some of them were originally tall trees that had their tips exposed after being sealed in ice. It looked like this too. When they reached the foot of the ice mountain, nothing unusual happened. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. With the ice mountain behind them, their safety was greatly increased. Only Wang Sheng still felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't find it for a while. Manager Li seemed to be a little tired. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the ice mountain, intending to rest for a while. At this moment, Wang Sheng finally understood where the problem was. Seeing that Manager Li's hand was about to touch the ice mountain, Wang Sheng quickly grabbed Manager Li's hand and pulled him back, pulling him away from the edge of the ice mountain. His other hand quickly moved to his mouth, signaling everyone to keep quiet. Chapter 631. When Steward Li was suddenly grabbed by Wang Sheng, he almost retaliated subconsciously. He finally understood that Wang Sheng wouldn't make a move on them here, so he forcefully held back. With Wang Sheng's exertion, he quickly left the side of the iceberg. Wang Sheng's premonition in the land of Thousand Despair had never been wrong. Everyone didn't know what Wang Sheng was doing at this time, but no one suspected that Wang Sheng was deliberately mystifying things. After getting everyone to lean back, at least about 3 meters away from the iceberg, Wang Sheng carefully squatted down and stretched out his hand to push away the floating snow at the foot of the iceberg. From a storage ring, Wang Sheng took out a 5 to 6 feet long iron rod and waved at Old Eunuch Shun. Old Eunuch Shun leaned over carefully, and Wang Sheng pointed down diagonally at a spot. Then he instructed Old Eunuch Shun very softly, "Melt the ice here, don't make a sound." Melting a small piece of ice was a small matter. Old Eunuch Shun cultivated a fire tribute cultivation technique, and he often helped Wang Sheng remove the ice bricks when building the igloo. At this moment, he took the iron rod without saying anything and used his spiritual energy. Soon, the iron rod became scorching hot. Old Eunuch Shun inserted the scorching hot iron rod into the spot that Wang Sheng pointed at. The hot iron rod was like a needle piercing into water, and it went down without any obstruction. After poking down less than 1.5 feet of thickness, Old Eunuch Shun felt that there was nothing in front of him. What was going on? Old Eunuch Shun immediately looked at Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng drew a circle with his hands, and Old Eunuch Shun nodded. He was asking him to dig out such a big hole from this spot. It was very easy to dig a hole in the ice with the scorching hot iron rod. He just needed to draw the iron rod along the edge of the hole. Wang Sheng had already grabbed the ice in the middle with one hand, and Old Eunuch Shun easily controlled the iron rod to melt the ice around it. Wang Sheng gently lifted it up, and the ice pillar in the middle was pulled out, revealing an irregular, circular hole in the ice. Using the same method, he melted the ice around him. The ice cave grew larger and larger until it was 6 feet long and 2 feet high. It was dark inside, and no one knew how deep it was. Looking in from the outside, nothing could be seen. No one would be stupid enough to use their spirit chi to probe. In this kind of place, they had to hide their own aura for fear of being discovered by those powerful demonic beasts, who would take the initiative to release their spirit chi to attract attention. Perhaps those hotheads who had just advanced would do so, but the four in front of him were even more shrewd than old foxes. No one would be stupid enough to do so. It was unknown if there was any poisonous gas in the cave that had just been opened. It had been sealed for who knew how many years. Even if it was to breathe, it would take some time. Wang Sheng was at the entrance of the cave. When the door opened a little, Wang Sheng could smell the scent inside. With his current sense of smell, he didn't smell anything wrong. Instead, he felt that the concentration of oxygen inside was higher than outside, which was very strange. Looking at the entrance of the cave, everyone looked at each other, as if no one had any idea. Then, their eyes all focused on Wang Sheng. After pondering for a while, Wang Sheng took out a torch from his storage ring. This torch was already prepared before they left. It was soaked in flame-resistant grease and could be used as long as it was lit. After lighting the torch with a match, Wang Sheng used a little strength and threw the torch into the wide cave. Everyone's eyes immediately followed the burning torch into the cave. Once the torch was thrown in, it began to descend in a parabolic trajectory. After descending for about 100 feet, it bounced up with a bang and fell back down. With the light of the torch, everyone could clearly see what was in front of them. This was a huge cave under the ice, about 100 feet deep. The position where Wang Sheng opened the cave was right at the edge of the cave. Less than 2 feet in front of the cave was the ice mountain that Chief Steward Li had almost reached. One torch clearly wasn't enough to illuminate the entire area. After Wang Sheng threw 2 more torches into the cave, everyone could clearly see it now. The cave under the ice was about 200 to 300 feet in radius, and it looked round. There was nothing in the cave. It was completely empty, but there were some withered tree trunks on ground. Clearly, there were trees here originally, but they were all withered and dead now. What was going on? The 3 imperial reverends looked at the situation below with a bellyful of doubt. An empty cave under the ice? Why did Wang Sheng act as if he was facing a great enemy? But since he acted as if he was facing a great enemy, Why did he throw 3 torches in without any hesitation, but didn't trigger any attacks? With the light of the torch and his eyesight, Wang Sheng could clearly see what he wanted to see below. Then, Wang Sheng didn't look down anymore, but looked around the ice mountain. Steward Zhou, be careful. Check if there are any arrays around, especially near the cave entrance. Wang Sheng cautiously instructed Steward Zhou. Actually, this instruction was unnecessary, because with the Xing formula, Wang Sheng could already confirm that there were array fluctuations at the edge of the ice mountain at such a close distance. However, Wang Sheng didn't want to reveal the Xing formula to the Imperial Reverence, so it was better to let Steward Zhou confirm personally. It would be more convincing. Steward Zhou didn't dare to be negligent. With a solemn expression, he held the array stone and slowly approached the cave entrance. Finally, when he was less than 2 steps away from the ice mountain, he felt the amplified array fluctuations from the array stone. Looking at the direction, it should be the direction of the ice mountain. At this moment, he seemed to understand why Wang Sheng suddenly pulled Chief Stewardly away. In such an empty place, an inexplicable array formation suddenly appeared, making people scratching their heads in confusion. There had to be a purpose for setting up an array, right? What was the purpose of setting up one here? When everyone looked at Wang Sheng, they realized that Wang Sheng had already closed his eyes. Nobody knew what he was thinking about. Everyone tacitly didn't disturb Wang Sheng and waited quietly. Even though everyone was extremely curious in their hearts, no one dared to rashly release their spiritual qi to investigate. It was truly unbearable. Wang Sheng opened his eyes and asked everyone to continue walking with him. After walking along the edge of the ice mountain for about 100 feet, Wang Sheng asked old eunuch Shun to poke a big hole in the ice at the foot of the ice mountain with a metal rod. Very soon, old eunuch Shun completed everything. When Wang Sheng pulled out the ice from the center, everyone could already see the light through the new hole. It was the 3 torches that Wang Sheng had thrown into the first hole. Seeing this, Wang Sheng didn't say anything and led everyone to walk another 100 feet around the ice mountain, repeating the process just now. When the hole opened, everyone saw the light of the 3 torches again. This ice mountain is floating above this hole. Wang Sheng finally came to a conclusion. He said to the 4 people who still couldn't understand, "Look, there's no support below." Chapter 632. The expressions of the 4 of them, including old Taoist Ling Su, changed at the same time. Such a huge iceberg was floating above the cave. Could there be anything more mysterious than this? Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Looking at the light of the torches that were still burning through the newly opened hole, old Taoist Ling Su and the 3 elders of the royal family couldn't believe their eyes. However, judging from what Wang Sheng had seen after digging 3 holes, there was a 90% chance that he was right. There was a formation here. Could it be because of the formation? Wang Sheng did not allow them to touch the iceberg just now. He must have discovered some danger on it. What's here? Old eunuch Shun pointed at the iceberg and asked. I don't know. Wang Sheng shook his head and added, It feels dangerous. Will we know if we touch it? Stewardly asked. If they did not touch it, they should not cause any trouble. At least they did not find anything strange along the way. However, they did not touch the iceberg. They did not know what would happen if they touched it. I'm not sure. Wang Sheng shook his head. Wang Sheng looked at the iceberg and the cave carefully. His mind worked quickly as he imagined all kinds of possibilities. When did the first expert release his aura? Now that Wang Sheng thought about it, it seemed like it was when Taoist Qing Chan was cultivating in the underground palace and had reached the pinnacle of the legendary realm. Was this the reason why old Taoist Qing Chan was tempering his body with spirit qi? Wang Sheng looked at the 4 of them, and they all looked at Wang Sheng, waiting for him to speak. Finally, Wang Sheng clenched his teeth and said, We'll know after an experiment. However, we might have to run away. Do you want to do it? Yes. Wang Sheng only asked the 3 old eunuchs. Old Taoist Ling Su was definitely the kind of person who would agree to anything Wang Sheng said. Hence, Stewardly was the one who answered. After discussing with his two companions, he gritted his teeth and agreed. You guys should maintain your current state. Stand here and don't expose your auras. Wang Sheng reminded everyone before he left the team and walked to the front. Nothing seemed to have happened before they got close to the iceberg. Wang Sheng carefully reached out his hand and touched the iceberg. The people behind him held their breaths and watched Wang Sheng's movements, especially old Taoist Ling Su. If anything went wrong, he would pull Wang Sheng away. Wang Sheng's hand finally touched the iceberg. First, it was a finger, then the entire palm. There was no movement at all. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Head Stewardly even felt that Wang Sheng was making a fuss out of nothing when he told him not to touch it. However, this was also good. There was nothing wrong with being careful. At most, nothing would happen. Wang Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his guess was correct. If one's cultivation was not at the peak of the legendary realm, they would not be able to trigger the danger inside. Wang Sheng reached out and wiped the surface of the iceberg, removing the snow and ice covering it, revealing the clear and transparent ice underneath. After wiping a few times, Wang Sheng stopped and stared blankly at the transparent part that he had wiped away. The four people behind him tensed up again when they saw Wang Sheng's actions. They were on guard and ready to attack at any time. After waiting for a while, it seemed that nothing had happened. What was going on? What was Wang Sheng doing? Just when Head Stewardly was about to remind Wang Sheng moved his body and revealed the small window on the iceberg that he had just blocked. Everyone looked through the small transparent part, and then all four of them were stunned on the spot. Through the small window, the four people could clearly see that there seemed to be a strange shadow frozen in the iceberg. That shadow looked like a person, but it was separated by a thick layer of ice, so they couldn't be sure. After a lot of refraction, it seemed to be a little deformed, but if they really looked carefully, they could still see the silhouette of the person. The five people swallowed a mouthful of saliva at the same time. A formation with a person frozen and a block of ice suspended above it. Wasn't this too unbelievable? My cultivation is far from the peak of the legendary realm. Wang Sheng said in a low voice, If any of you release your aura, I am afraid that many of the monsters inside will be angered. Is this what you want to test? Head Stewardly finally understood what Wang Sheng meant when he said a test. Wang Sheng could touch it because his cultivation was not at the peak of the legendary realm. But Head Stewardly couldn't touch it because it might cause a disaster. Wang Sheng nodded. Now, the four people were still restraining their aura. Since entering the land of Thousand Despair, they had been restraining their aura. Even if they encountered a monster, they would quickly kill it and didn't fully release their aura. If they really released their aura at the peak of the legendary realm here, it might just be a big firecracker. What if they didn't continue? Old Taoist Ling Su didn't have any objections. Ever since he saw that terrifying monster expert, he was confident that he would at least be able to put up a fight. Mainly, the three Imperial Consecrators wanted to confirm what it would feel like to release their aura. The three people continued to exchange glances and finally reached a decision to give it a try. Everyone came here to understand more about the core of the land of Thousand Despair. This test could also be considered as a way for the Imperial family and Wang Sheng to understand more about the core of the land of Thousand Despair. Let's do it. Wang Sheng stepped back, and Head Stewardly stepped forward, intending to release his aura to touch the iceberg. Just as he released his aura, before Head Stewardly could touch any part of the iceberg, an extremely violent aura suddenly burst out from the iceberg. Then the inside of the iceberg turned red, and endless heat surged out from the inside. The iceberg melted almost instantly, and the melted iceberg water fell right into the hole below, quickly filling up the entire hole. At the original core of the iceberg, a violent expert roared into the sky, triggering a violent impact of his aura. Then, the expert suddenly turned to Head Stewardly and let out another shocking roar. Everyone felt as if their minds had been struck by a sudden clap of thunder, buzzing. Wang Sheng had already stuffed a small piece of cloth into his ears, but even so, he still felt dizzy. Head Steward Lee and the other two were also shocked to the point of disorientation, but at least they were still vigilant, and Head Steward Lee instantly restrained his aura. Old Taoist Ling Su was the least affected. Without another word, he raised his hand and 4 ropes flew out, entangling Wang Sheng and the 3 old eunuchs. Without looking back, he ran away from the violent expert. Old Taoist Ling Su didn't stop until he was several kilometers away. Wang Sheng and the others had also recovered a little and could at least move on their own. Manager Li was just about to express his thanks to Old Taoist Ling Su when suddenly, from the left and right, 2 similar berserk auras burst forth. Countless demonic beasts ran out from their hiding places in a frenzy, scurrying in all directions in a panic. Chapter 633. Before these 2 violent auras could subside, another aura that everyone was relatively familiar with also became violent. The direction that everyone sensed was clearly the non-human demonic beast that was cultivating at the beginning. At this distance, no matter how violent the aura was, it was just an aura without any lethality. It was just shocking. Wang Sheng and the others had experienced the roars of those experts at close range, so this aura was nothing to them. However, the people at the Imperial Treasury's campsite in the Land of Thousand Despair, the people at the underground palace of the Lao Jun Taoist Temple, and the people at the Song family's campsite all sensed the 4 violent auras and also sensed the direction of the auras. It was the core of the place of Thousand Extremes again, yet another aura that made everyone feel uneasy. Before they could figure out anything about the super expert from last time, 4 more violent auras had appeared. What was going on inside? Countless people started to move, and many of them had to leave the campsite. Even though the opportunity to cultivate in the campsite was rare, this piece of information was more important than their own cultivation, and they had to inform their families. Compared to the chaos outside, the 5 people in the core of the place of Thousand Extremes were relatively calm. Now, everyone was faced with a problem. Should they continue to investigate in the place of Thousand Extremes, or should they turn back? Wang Sheng's experiment had already proved that in the core of the place of Thousand Extremes, or even in the periphery of the place of Thousand Extremes, if an expert at the peak of the legendary realm released his aura, it would awaken the berserk experts in the core of the place of Thousand Extremes. For the time being, these berserk experts could not escape the restraints of the formations, and could not move to the periphery of the place of Thousand Extremes. However, who knew if the formation would still be able to restrain them once more awakened? Decades ago, there were so many experts in the worry-free city, but they suffered heavy losses when they encountered a demonic beast in human form. If a few of them were to escape, wouldn't it be a disaster for the whole world? The core of the place of Thousand Extremes was really a contradictory place. Those with low cultivation would die if they entered, while those with high cultivation would alarm the demonic beasts. Once the demonic beasts broke free, they would also die. To put it bluntly, this area did not want anyone to enter. Let's go out. This time, it was not the idea of Wang Sheng and Old Taoist Ling Su, but the idea of the 3 imperial consecrators. They also understood the great danger that could be involved in this, and finally decided not to take the risk. Not only would they have to retreat, but Wang Sheng would also have to make a trip to the Carefree City to warn the major clans not to send experts of the legendary Peak Realm into the city. The 5 of them were not the type to procrastinate. Once they made a decision, they immediately took action. In order to leave the core circle as soon as possible, Wang Sheng did not choose to turn back. Instead, after determining the direction, he headed straight for the edge of the ice world that was closest to him. Along the way, the steward didn't forget to use the array stone to survey the array, and Wang Sheng also led everyone to avoid several demonic beast attacks. There were even 2 times where, in order to prevent everyone from releasing their presence, Wang Sheng used the heavy sniper crossbow and killed 2 9th-stage realm initial stage demonic beasts. At the same time, it also indirectly proved the power of the heavy sniper crossbow. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the forest at the edge of the snowy world. Being able to see it meant that it wasn't too far away. At most, it would only be a few dozen kilometers away. However, this distance still took them half a day's time, and Wang Sheng used the heavy sniper crossbow twice. Although there were a lot of 8th and 9th stage realm demonic beasts meat in the storage ring, Wang Sheng would rather not encounter any demonic beast than to kill wantonly here. Even exposing one's presence was a dangerous thing. Who knew what kind of trouble such a killing would cause? It was best not to take action if possible, otherwise there would be endless troubles in the future. In the hearts of everyone rushed to the edge of the world of ice and snow. With the help of some weapons, they climbed up the high ice layer and entered the forest. They didn't dare to stay in the forest for long. After a short rest, they recovered some physical strength and immediately rushed out. When they completely walked out of the core of the place of Thousand Despair, they felt a completely different aura from the inside. Only then did they completely relax. In order to avoid making an extra trip, Wang Sheng led everyone straight to the Imperial Treasury's camp. Of course, the old Taoist Ling Su and the 3 old priests did not show up and stayed in the forest of the place of Thousand Despair. Wang Sheng ran to the Imperial Treasury's camp alone and warned the camp supervisor, asking him to inform Marquis Liu Wenho not to let any experts who have reached the peak of the legendary realm enter the camp. Otherwise, it would lead to the appearance of more berserk experts in the core area, leading to an uncontrollable situation. The camp supervisor was shocked and did not dare to neglect. He quickly wrote down the message and let the flying demonic beast send it back to Carefree City. Although he had a stomach full of questions to ask Wang Sheng, he also knew that even if he asked, Wang Sheng would not answer. Watching Wang Sheng leave, the camp supervisor thought about it and added a few words to the letter sent back. He suspected that the several berserk auras this time were discovered after Wang Sheng brought people in. Otherwise, it was impossible for Wang Sheng to know so much detail. To be able to become the camp supervisor and be entrusted with heavy responsibilities, no one was simple. Just based on Wang Sheng's slightly detailed warning, the camp supervisor could guess so much. He was indeed a talent. After warning the camp, Wang Sheng returned to the jungle of the place of Thousand Despair and went straight to the capital with the 3 old eunuchs of the royal family. Along the way, it was still the same style as when they came, simple, rough, and direct. They did not avoid the demon beasts and killed them if they encountered them. If they did not encounter them, they were considered lucky. As before, the 3 people were sent to the last meeting place, which was only a step away from the edge of the place of Thousand Despair. There was no need for Wang Sheng to accompany them, so the 2 sides separated. The 3 old monsters of the royal family must return to the capital as soon as possible to report to the emperor. They did not want people to know that they entered the core area of the place of Thousand Despair with Wang Sheng. When you go back, remember to help me sort out the information I want to see. Wang Sheng did not forget to remind Steward Li of the compensation for preventing snow blindness. Steward Li nodded and did not say anything. It was Steward Zhou who asked, "Marquis, what do you plan to do? Go to the worry-free city to auction the method to prevent snow blindness and earn a small sum of money first," Wang Sheng said with a smile. "But before that, I need to collect a debt." "Debt collection?" Old Eunuch Shen was also interested and asked with a smile, "Do you need help?" The royal family still has a group of experts who are good at collecting debts. "No need." Wang Sheng gestured with his finger that he was holding the heavy sniper crossbow. "The last time the Dai family attacked me, it was said that it was the order of the Dai family's grand elder. I originally planned to collect the debt after I finished making the heavy sniper crossbow, but now that I have let him live for a few more days, it is better to collect the debt as soon as possible." Chapter 634. Looking at the smiling Wang Sheng, the 3 old consecrators thought about how the heavy sniper crossbows had been used several times in the core region of the grounds of Thousand Despair. In their hearts, they had already sentenced the great elder of the Dai clan, who was the prime minister, to death. Of all people to scheme against, he had a scheme against Wang Sheng. Moreover, if you really wanted to scheme against him, then you should have planned it well and killed him in one strike, not letting Wang Sheng have any chance to escape. They had already started a large-scale attack, yet they still let Wang Sheng escape. What kind of foolish method was that? Now, the Dai family should be prepared to pay the price. The three old consecrators had some idea of the experts from the various vassal states. Obviously, this great elder of the Dai family was not on the list of people they had to be on guard against. Perhaps he had enough power, but his cultivation was far from it. According to their current estimates, he was at most in the 8th degree realm. An 8th degree realm expert wanted to block a blow from Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow. Everyone thought about the two 9th degree realm early stage demonic beasts in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair and shook their heads in their hearts. The life and death of the great elder of the Dai family could not be compared to the friendly relationship between the imperial family and Wang Sheng. Even if the three of them knew about Wang Sheng's movements in advance, they would not have the intention to warn the Dai family. Not to mention the vague hostility between the imperial family and the vassal states. Just the fact that Wang Sheng was giving the imperial family tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of gold coins every year was enough to determine that the imperial family would definitely stand on the side of Wang Sheng in the dark. Even if they did not help Wang Sheng, they would definitely not play any tricks in the dark. Now it was more important to report the discovery of the core of the Emperor's ground of Thousand Despair. Everything else could be ignored. After parting with Wang Sheng, the three of them left secretly. Once they left this place, they would be in the capital city's territory. The three old monsters had 10,000 ways to hide their tracks. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su turned around and continued back into the ground of Thousand Despair. Other than the matter that Wang Sheng mentioned earlier, the two of them had one more thing to do, and that was to inform the experts in the underground palace. One of the Qing generation disciples happened to be on the verge of breaking through, so it was better not to let him break through. Anyway, there were several ways to return to the temple. Old Taoist Ling Su was going to take charge for a period of time, and at the same time, he had to remember the route back so that it would be convenient for him to resupply in the future. When they arrived at the underground palace, the Taoists of the Taoist camp of the Taoist temple were all in a flurry. The two most senior people in the entire Laojun temple were here. It must have something to do with the 4 violent auras in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair. They had some fear previously, but now Sheng and Wang Taoist old of Sheng, an old of Taoist old master. The old Taoist who was on the verge of breaking through was pulled aside by old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng. They told him in detail what they had seen and heard, and also let him know what had happened. Then, the old Taoist brought a group of Taoists who had been living there for almost a year back to the old Taoist temple. When they returned, they would replace the next batch of disciples to come and gain experience. This was Wang Sheng's opinion. From Wang Sheng, he knew that it had become easier for experts to cultivate in recent years. After the emergence of experts, Wang Sheng also sought confirmation from various parties, and it was indeed the case. Wang Sheng also knew that the aura in the ground of Thousand Despair could stimulate cultivation, but he did not recommend breaking through in the ground of Thousand Despair. Cultivation still needed to be steady, especially at the final stage of breaking through. In this regard, the rich spiritual energy in the ground of Thousand Despair was a little like spoiling seedlings through excessive enthusiasm. It was good to cultivate for a period of time and feel the aura of the ground of Thousand Despair to stimulate cultivation, but it was best to do it in a normal environment when it came to breaking through. Old Taoist Ling Su also agreed with Wang Sheng's opinion. The last time the old Taoist had broken through was in the camp, and that was a few years ago. However, after the breakthrough, he was almost at the same realm as the violent demonic beasts, but his strength was obviously not as strong as the beasts in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair. He only gained confidence after Wang Sheng provided him with a method to change aperture acupoints. It was conceivable that a fast breakthrough would lead to a lack of foundation. In addition, when old Taoist Ling Su had broken through a few years ago, he did not cause the violent aura in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair to erupt, which meant that the core of the ground of Thousand Despair was still very quiet at that time. When it came to the old Taoist Ling Su's breakthrough, it attracted trouble. It seemed that as time passed, the core of the ground of Thousand Despair would become more and more unstable. Could there be other reasons for this? Once again, Wang Sheng set out on his journey. This time, old Taoist Ling Su did not follow. He knew that Wang Sheng wanted to settle accounts with the Dai family. Wang Sheng was a good person, but he could not bear to be wronged. He would always think of ways to take revenge. Because of the last incident, the Dai family had lost dozens of experts, but Wang Sheng did not intend to let the mastermind go. Marquis Dai and several important ministers were discussing important matters these days. The content of the important matter was the suggestion that Wang Sheng asked the camp supervisor to send back to the imperial treasury. Never send experts at the peak of the legendary realm into the vicinity of the core of the ground of Thousand Despair. If there was a reason to go, then the expert must restrain his aura and not expose himself. Otherwise, it would cause an unknown number of experts in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair to wake up. The consequences would be terrible. If it involved the core of the ground of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng's warning was the golden rule. What's more, along with the warning, there was news of 4 violent auras erupting at the same time. 4 violent auras meant 4 terrifying experts. The last time Wang Sheng went in with so many people, only 3 people, including Wang Sheng, came back. The Dai family got the news from other families. The problem now was that the core of the ground of Thousand Despair was repeatedly breaking out with big news and the emergence of great experts, but the Dai family was blocked outside the ground of Thousand Despair. They could only watch helplessly as other families entered the ground of Thousand Despair and approached the core of the ground of Thousand Despair. They could only look on enviously. Everyone knew that the core of the ground of Thousand Despair must have a big secret and great benefits related to the Dai family. The boundary stone could explain everything. However, because of the great elder's impulsive action, the Dai family was completely pushed to the opposite side of Wang Sheng. For this, Wang Sheng didn't hesitate to use his capital. The man-eating ants completely devoured the Dai family's disciples in the ground of Thousand Despair. It wasn't that the Dai family didn't dare to send people into the ground of Thousand Despair anymore. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. Those who survive in the ground of Thousand Despair couldn't be mediocre. If they met Wang Sheng, they would be dead. The Dai family couldn't afford to lose so many experts. If they had known that they would have to pay such a big price to deal with Wang Sheng, no one in the Dai family would have made such a rash decision. One wrong step led to many wrong steps. This time, the Dai family might be left in the dust by the other vassal states, and the benefits in the core of the ground of Thousand Despair would never belong to the Dai family. Chapter 635. When Dai family's Grand Elder, the current Dai Kingdom's Prime Minister, left the palace, his heart was filled with worries. The Marquis and the others had thought very well. Apologize and give in to Wang Sheng, but was it really that easy? When that time came, what would be the outcome of him, the person who had given the order? The few people in the Elders Association were thinking beautifully, casually pushing out a scapegoat for Wang Sheng to vent his anger, ending this grudge. Wishful thinking. Did they really treat Wang Sheng as a fool to play with? This was just everyone's wishful thinking. Did they totally not consider whether Wang Sheng would be willing or not? Naive? Of course. The most important thing was that Grand Elder didn't wish for anyone to use this matter to threaten his own position. So after discussing for several days, the suggestion to give in was still rejected by Grand Elder in an extremely unyielding manner. Grand Elder had already decided to spend a huge sum of money to hire top exponents from Divine Might Prison to assassinate Wang Sheng once again. This time round, he must put Wang Sheng to death. Otherwise, he would be a huge threat to himself in future. Walking out of the palace door, Grand Elder suddenly sensed something amiss, as though someone was secretly looking at him. This feeling flashed by and disappeared immediately. It should be a guard who noticed him, hence he let down his guard. Grand Elder thought in his heart, as he didn't think much of it as he continued to move forward. There were at least 4 7th-stage realm guards by his side, and in Dai Kingdom's capital, there was no way that anything could happen. The 4 guards didn't discover anything amiss, so it should be Grand Elder's feeling that something was wrong. Walking down from a newly built palace's high flight of stairs, Grand Elder looked at the capital below his feet as he walked. The row upon row of houses, the bustling crowd, everything made the Great Elder feel as if he was high above, overlooking all living things. Looking at the crowd, which was like ants from afar, the feeling of being in control of everything arose spontaneously. To be able to give him such a feeling every day, as though he was floating in the air, Grand Elder even felt that Marquis Dai was already slightly out of his control. If this carried on, he would probably have to change to another Marquis. Raising his head, Grand Elder took a deep breath and was just about to blow out the pent-up frustrations from these few days of quarrels when his eyes saw a spot of light. After that, there was nothing else for the Great Elder. The 4 guards protecting the Great Elder were watching the Great Elder walk down the stairs of the palace. This was the Great Elder's favorite moment to enjoy every day. On the steps, below the steps, and even every few steps, there were guards standing guard. It was impossible for anyone to assassinate them at close range, so their vigilance was greatly reduced. Just when they heard the familiar sound of the first elder inhaling, a ray of light flashed. Everyone was shocked. A few guards wanted to block in front of the Great Elder, but it was too late. With a loud bang, the Great Elder's head turned into a pile of crushed bones and flesh. The remaining power of the light didn't diminish, exploding Great Elder's head. With a cheese sound, it penetrated into the hard stone steps behind Great Elder. Hong, the stone steps, seemed to have been struck by some giant hammer and exploded into pieces. At this moment, the headless body of the Great Elder was still standing upright. The 4 guards of the Great Elder, as well as the dozens of palace guards on the surrounding steps, were all dumbfounded. They looked at the Great Elder's corpse in disbelief. A few miles away, Wang Sheng had already put away the heavy sniper crossbow and left as if nothing had happened. In order to appear high and mighty, the Dai Kingdom's palace was built halfway up the mountain. Coming out of the palace, one could overlook the entire city, which gave the Marquis and the big shots a feeling of superiority. However, for a sniper like Wang Sheng, this style of construction also meant that Wang Sheng didn't even need a commanding height to see the target from any residential area at the foot of the mountain. Wang Sheng had been in the capital of Dai Kingdom for 2 days. After confirming the target's work and rest schedule, he waited in this temporary residence and succeeded in one shot. Once the job was done, he would leave without a trace. Wang Sheng didn't care about the panic in the palace and left quietly according to the retreat route that he had observed long ago. Even though the palace immediately ordered the city gates to be closed to search for the assassin, when the order to close the city gates was sent to the city gates, Wang Sheng was already curiously looking at the bounty notice pasted on the city walls outside the city gates. Once the city was in chaos, the people outside the city immediately followed suit. They were afraid that they would be implicated, so they dispersed in a hubbub. Wang Sheng followed the crowd and disappeared without a trace. Even if they dug 3 feet into the ground in the capital, they still wouldn't be able to find Wang Sheng's whereabouts. Marquis Dai and his confidants were feeling depressed in the palace. The Great Elder's aggressive tone and uncompromising attitude made Marquis Dai feel really awkward. It was clearly the Great Elder's mistake, but he refused to admit it and insisted on going against Wang Sheng to the end. Could he just watch as the Dai Kingdom was excluded from the core of the land of Thousand Despair? Suddenly, a loud bang came from outside the palace. Marquis Dai and the others were stunned. What exactly happened? How could such a huge commotion be created in the palace? Someone immediately ran out to check on the commotion. At this moment, the guards at the palace gates who had just regained their senses also hurriedly sent news over. The Prime Minister of the Dai Kingdom, the Great Elder of the Dai clan, was on the steps of the palace gates. He had been shot in the head with an unknown hidden weapon and was long dead. The hidden weapon for the assassination was still being dug out, and it would be reported to Marquis Dai as soon as it was dug out. They were still worrying about the Great Elder just now, but all of a sudden, the Great Elder's troubles were no longer troubles. While Marquis Dai was overjoyed, he had no choice but to put on a grief-stricken expression. He ordered the city gates to be closed and the entire city searched. Not long after, there was no news from the search in the city. However, the arrow that had killed the Great Elder of the Dai clan had been dug out and sent to Marquis Dai. What kind of arrow is this? Everyone looked at the arrow that had pierced through the Great Elder's head, exploded his head, and even blew up a few pieces of the steps behind the Great Elder. Marquis Dai couldn't help but ask in astonishment. The group of people shook their heads in unison. This didn't look like an arrow at all. It was a long cylindrical object with a sharp tip at the front and no tail feathers at the back. How could it be called an arrow? While everyone was guessing, a guard reported another discovery. At this moment, the attack should have been made in a private house at the foot of the mountain 5 miles away. It was said that the people around the private house had heard a loud bang. Furthermore, the temporary tenant of the private house had disappeared without a trace. This became an important piece of evidence. Who did it? Killing someone 5 miles away. When Marquis Dai thought that if this arrow had been aimed at him, his head would probably be no better than the Great Elder's. Thinking of this, he felt his heart break. If he didn't get to the bottom of this, Wang Sheng probably wouldn't be able to sleep. 5 miles away. I'm afraid there's only one person who can do it. Someone immediately thought of an answer and answered hesitantly. The one who killed Dai Si and Elder Wuji previously, Chongxing Ho Wang Sheng. Chapter 636. As soon as this name was mentioned, everyone felt a headache. Wasn't everyone discussing how to solve the problem brought by Wang Sheng? In order to make Wang Sheng understand, Marquis Dai was even willing to compromise and apologize, but it was vetoed by the Great Elder. Now, there was no longer a problem with the Great Elder. The Great Elder couldn't even protect his own head, let alone vetoing any resolution. The problem was if this was really done by Wang Sheng. Didn't it mean that Wang Sheng had already planned to take the initiative to collect his blood debt? Who would he target next? Marquis Dai? It is said that Chongsheng Ho borrowed a group of great grandmasters from Linglong Pavilion not long ago, saying that he wanted to make his own exclusive weapon. Someone immediately thought of this news and said, the capital was a big sieve. Unless it was the inner court of the Imperial Palace or Wang Sheng's Marquis Mansion, it was easy to find out a lot of information from other places. Wang Sheng used a lot of people on his side. Apart from keeping things secret, he didn't keep anything else secret. It was very normal for outsiders to get the news. Is this Chongsheng Ho's exclusive weapon? Marquis Dai looked at the strangely shaped arrow and asked in bewilderment. It doesn't matter whether Chongsheng Ho did it or not. Some confidants had already cleverly dismissed the irrelevant people. Only Marquis Dai and a group of confidants were left. They stepped forward and suggested, at least the Great Elder won't oppose anything in the future. Marquis doesn't have to worry about the Great Elder's power. Hearing this, Marquis Dai's eyes suddenly lit up. These days, it wasn't just the Great Elder and Marquis Dai who were quarreling because of Wang Sheng. In fact, Marquis Dai had a lot of resentment towards the Great Elder since a long time ago, including the matter of the Great Elder using people to kill Wang Sheng, which made Marquis Dai very unhappy. Similar things had happened many times. It was always the Great Elder who didn't put Marquis Dai in his eyes at all. He did things his own way and was arrogant and despotic. Ever since Dai Wuji's death, the number of Dai family's elders who secretly supported Marquis Dai had decreased by one. The Great Elder took advantage of the situation and promoted an elder who didn't get along with the patriarch. Basically, from that moment on, Marquis Dai and the Great Elder were at loggerheads, fighting each other for power. The reason why Wang Sheng didn't immediately take revenge on the person in charge was because he didn't have a suitable weapon at that time. Secondly, he wanted to create internal strife in the Dai family and create an opportunity for himself. In any case, Wang Sheng was certain that as long as he sealed off the grounds of Thousand Despair and prevented the Dai family from dipping their fingers in, there would definitely be different voices within the Dai family. Perhaps it was the Great Elder, perhaps it was Marquis Dai, or even the other elders. In short, if the Dai clan's great benefits were harmed, someone would definitely jump out. Wang Sheng had been waiting for this dissatisfaction to slowly ferment while he was crafting weapons and raising his cultivation base. He watched as other families raised the cultivation base of their disciples and tried to explore the core secrets of the grounds of Thousand Despair from all directions, while the Dai family, the only family with the boundary stone, was shut out. This huge disparity was unbearable for anyone in the Dai family. As long as this resentment accumulated to a certain extent, no matter who the person in charge was, Wang Sheng wouldn't incur an intense backlash from the Dai family if he killed him. If Wang Sheng had killed Marquis Dai indiscriminately at that time, it wasn't that he couldn't do it, but if he had done so, Wang Sheng would definitely be hunted down by the Dai family. However, it was different now. Wang Sheng had killed the person in charge, the Great Elder, who everyone was dissatisfied with. However, the others would only be secretly pleased. This was especially so for Marquis Dai. Not only did he get rid of a hindrance on his path to power, as long as he didn't hunt down Wang Sheng, it would be indirectly giving Wang Sheng a huge amount of face. If he talked to Wang Sheng about the grounds of Thousand Despair, Wang Sheng would also be able to let him go. This was beneficial for both parties. If Marquis Dai didn't know how to grasp this opportunity, he wouldn't be Marquis Dai. He definitely wouldn't have had the chance to live until now. He would have been killed countless times. Find out where Chongqing Ho is as soon as possible and pay him a visit personally. Marquis Dai was indeed Marquis Dai. He immediately appointed his confidant, who had just spoken. Show enough sincerity. As long as Chongqing Ho doesn't seal off the grounds of Thousand Despair, tell him that the Dai Kingdom is willing to pay the price. The confidant received the order and immediately went to make arrangements. As long as the grounds of Thousand Despair's seal was unsealed, the Dai family disciples would be able to enter the grounds of Thousand Despair to cultivate. This would definitely be a good thing. Immediately monitor the Great Elder's faction and prepare to take action at any time. Marquis Dai instructed another confidant. If they didn't take advantage of the Great Elder's death to take over the Great Elder's faction, wouldn't it be a waste of an opportunity? Speaking of which, Marquis Dai had 80% confidence in taking action at this time. Firstly, the Great Elder was already dead. Secondly, the Dai family disciples who died in the grounds of Thousand Despair were mostly people on the Great Elder's side. This also caused the Great Elder's faction to suffer a great loss. To be honest, Wang Sheng had killed the first elder. To Marquis Dai, Wang Sheng was a benefactor, not an enemy. Every party quickly took action. The news of the Dai Kingdom's prime minister being assassinated was quickly spread throughout the world. While countless people were shocked, there were also many who felt that it was reasonable. At least, the emperor thought so. When he heard the news and intelligence brought back by the three old consecrators of the royal family, he heard the news of the Dai family's great elder being killed within a few days. Steward Li had already told the emperor that Wang Sheng was going to collect the debt. This debt was indeed collected quickly. Is his weapon that powerful? The emperor once again asked Steward Li and Steward Zhou. Both of them nodded their heads. Wang Sheng had killed 2 9-stage realm demonic beasts and several 8-stage realm beasts in the grounds of Thousand Despair with their own eyes. Now that the Dai family's great elder was killed using the same heavy sniper crossbow, there was no doubt about it. While the emperor was shocked, he was also extremely glad that he didn't go against Wang Sheng. At the same time, Pavilion Master Ling Long was also rejoicing. After receiving the news, Pavilion Master Ling Long knew that Wang Sheng's heavy sniper crossbow was really that powerful and had such a long range. Pavilion Master Ling Long couldn't decide whether to spend a huge sum of money to make another one or not. As for the other parties, they were all interested in Wang Sheng's weapon, and at the same time, they were also interested in what happened in the grounds of Thousand Despair's core. Wang Sheng jumped out to warn them at that time, and without asking, it was definitely related to Wang Sheng. The only thing they didn't know was how to get the specific news. This required a face-to-face discussion with Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng didn't disappoint them. After killing the Dai Kingdom's premier, he headed straight to Worry-Free City. There would definitely be people who wanted to know about the grounds of Thousand Despair's core. This was another huge sum of wealth. Moreover, Wang Sheng believed that with such a huge commotion inside, it would be strange if the Sure family and Gone family could still sit still. Didn't they want to know what the treasures in the Peerless Treasure Map were? The minute he returned to Worry-Free City, Wang Sheng found out that he had to face another problem. Xia family's long-legged, beautiful assassin Aki had been staying at Wang Sheng's house. Chapter 637. This time when Wang Sheng killed the Dai family's grand elder, it had shocked all the vassal states. In the past, everyone thought that Wang Sheng was a small character, and what could he do alone? It was until Wang Sheng announced that he had sealed the Dai family's chance to enter the Thousand Despair grounds when everyone realized that a small character could be the key to controlling some important matters. However, when news spread that Wang Sheng had killed the Dai clan's grand elder, who was protected by several experts several li away, with a single arrow in broad daylight, many people began to worry. Dai family's grand elder's cultivation wasn't considered high, but it wasn't considered low either. 8th-stage realm middle stage to a person who had a high position and lived like a prince wasn't considered to be slacking on his cultivation. But with this kind of cultivation, plus the number of top experts protecting him, he was actually killed in one strike. If the Dai family's grand elder was replaced by himself, what would the result be? Wang Sheng was able to threaten almost everyone's lives, and this kind of feeling was really unbearable. Dai family was really unlucky as they kept bumping into Wang Sheng's gun. From Dai Huan to 4th Master Dai to Dai Wuji, and now the Grand Elder, each of their statuses were higher than the other, and each of their cultivations were stronger than the other. Why did Wang Sheng set his eyes on the Dai family? Would it be the Dai family's patriarch next time? Now that everyone recalled, it seemed that when Wang Sheng sold the method to upgrade his soul in Carefree City, Wang Sheng and the various parties had an agreement that everything in the past would end here. Wang Sheng would not pursue the matter of the various parties chasing after Wang Sheng, and the various parties would not lay their hands on Wang Sheng. Later on, Wang Sheng indeed did not take the initiative to deal with any of the families. Then there was an exception. Dai family sent out their assassins to deal with Wang Sheng, but Wang Sheng turned around and killed Dai Wuji. Song Honda left the Thousand Despair grounds to deal with Wang Sheng. Until now, Song Honda was still bedridden, and no one knew if it was related to Wang Sheng. It was this time. Dozens of Dai clan members attacked, leaving only a dozen or so alive at the scene. After that, the Dai clan's disciples in the lands of Thousand Despair were completely annihilated. A few months later, even the Dai clan's grand elder, who was in charge of the camp at that time, couldn't escape Wang Sheng's assassination. From the past few incidents, Wang Sheng could be considered a very principled person. Since he promised not to pursue the matter, then he would not pursue the matter of the past. However, if anyone continued to provoke him, he would immediately turn into a porcupine covered in thorns. He would not stop until the clan that attacked him was covered in cuts and bruises. As for the person who made the move, he might be able to escape with his life. However, one only needed to look at the outcome of the Dai clan's grand elder to know who the mastermind was. After discovering this, all the major families, especially those who had not done anything to Wang Sheng before, were overjoyed. This was definitely the best time to rope in Wang Sheng. Even if they couldn't rope him in, they could at least become friends and not enemies. Everyone was guessing where Wang Sheng would appear, but Wang Sheng had already entered the Carefree City without anyone knowing. When he returned to his new residence, Wang Sheng discovered that the place had actually changed. It had only been a few months since he last saw it, but the courtyard near the Carefree City Lord's residence was completely different from before he left. Not only did the entire courtyard structure and the level of luxury of the houses change, but there were also a lot more people. Fortunately, Wang Sheng knew all the extra people. They were all outstanding young disciples sent by the Temple of Lao Jun to gain experience in the mortal world. There weren't many of them, only 10 of them, but they were all very intelligent and discerning. Marquis. When they saw Wang Sheng, these people bowed in unison. Outside, these disciples of the Temple of Lao Jun would only address Wang Sheng as Marquis and not Elder. A few of them quickly brought Wang Sheng into the residence. Wang Sheng was the master, and there was no need for him to stand on the street and talk. "Why are you all here?" Wang Sheng was very surprised. He didn't send them to Carefree City and only let them gain experience in the capital. Why would they appear in Carefree City? "Madam sent us to look after the house for Marquis." The leading young guard smiled and replied respectfully to Wang Sheng. She said to protect Marquis's property, and at this point, the guard leader obviously hesitated for a moment. Wang Sheng, of course, heard it and asked curiously, "And what?" "And Marquis, Madame Ru." The leader quickly said the answer. "Where did I get Madame Ru?" Wang Sheng's eyes widened and asked in surprise. Not to mention a concubine, Wang Sheng didn't even have a wife. Wang Sheng knew that the madam that the leader referred to was Mayor, but nothing had happened between him and Mayor. It was just that the people in the capital now seemed to have determined that Mayor was Wang Sheng's wife. Wang Sheng didn't refute it, otherwise Mayor would have been kicked out of the Marquis's residence. He hadn't even settled the Mayor. Where did this concubine Madame Ru come from? Suddenly, Wang Sheng realized something. There seemed to be a woman in Carefree City who claimed to be his woman. Was it that long-legged killer Aki? Wang Sheng was about to explain something when the leader suddenly said to Wang Sheng, "Marquis, second madam has arrived. This subordinate will take his leave." He bowed and left without waiting for Wang Sheng's response. Turning his head, Wang Sheng saw the killer Aki in another disguise. Behind Aki were the two young maidservants that Mayor had given to Wang Sheng when she was still in Baoqing Yutang. In the past, Aki always wore a tight black dress and looked travel-worn. The only exception was when Wang Sheng recognized her as someone who bought Wang Sheng's meat. Because Wang Sheng said that Wang Sheng was a flirt, everyone in Carefree City thought that Wang Sheng liked long-legged beauties. Now, Aki had changed into a relatively beautiful dress. It was still the same clean and neat dress, but the colors were much more colorful. She looked very energetic. Perhaps because she didn't have to risk her life to make a living, the skin on her face looked more delicate than before. "Marquis, you're back." Aki curtsied to Wang Sheng. However, wearing a dress was not as beautiful as wearing a dress. Moreover, Aki didn't seem very used to it. She looked very awkward. After Aki bowed, the two young maidservants followed suit. From the looks of it, they treated Aki as their mistress. Looking at Aki, Wang Sheng couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. It was true that Aki had pledged her allegiance to him, and it was also true that she was his woman. However, it was clearly an expedient measure. Why did everyone take it seriously? In the capital, there was Mayor as the first madam, and here there was Aki as the second madam. Wang Sheng felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. He had clearly had intimate relations with Song Yin before, but Song Yin was not in the madam rankings. Nothing had happened between him and Mayor and Aki, but the two of them were the first madam and second madam in the eyes of outsiders. What was going on? However, thinking about it, with Aki's condition at that time, Wang Sheng had taken a huge risk when he asked her to inform the Dai family. It wasn't appropriate to chase her out now, so Wang Sheng could only awkwardly accept the situation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.